Alicia Melfont witnessed her family's slaughter overnight at the hands of the Dark God's minions. She vowed to restore her family's honor, no matter the cost. But then she discovered a shocking truth. The world she lived in was merely a story within a mysterious book. In that book, Alicia was but a supporting character, destined to die tragically, serving only to highlight the protagonist's glory. Unable to accept her fate, she resolved to defy the twisted narrative. Alicia embarked on a journey to rewrite her ending, rebelling against the destiny prescribed by the original script, and reach the pinnacle of success. Everyone, please follow Lisa Manoa to watch this captivating series. The story begins during the 500th anniversary celebration of Alothen's empire. The royal capital was bustling with activity, the entire square overflowing with a lively atmosphere. Crimson high heels trod proudly upon the velvet carpet, each step echoing a declaration. After 10 years of hardship, this moment had finally arrived. The noble figure walked towards the light and the sky, where all buried hopes now soared fiercely. She knew how many long years she had waited for the citizens of Lothen's to see this day, for her proud and respected family to witness the return of Alicia Melfont. Long ago, this was a prosperous land with a temperate climate and fertile soil where every soul thrived. Alicia's parents were the most prominent and respected nobles in the western region. Along with her dependable older brother and sister-in-law, they shone like the sun. Her family was her pride and joy, not to mention that one beautiful morning, Alicia's father brought home a new member of the family. He introduced Ophelia, a beautiful girl blessed with divine power, who would live with them from then on. She was delighted to have another sister and companion. Ophelia had once gently complimented Alicia, saying, "Alicia, you look so beautiful wearing the Teresa flower wreath, as if you were born to wear it." She blushed shyly. It was a perfect life, as if the goddess Milan herself was smiling upon them. Alicia thought this happiness would last forever, until the unfortunate clouds rolled in, casting a shadow over the entire family. It all began with the appearance of Nyx. She had been suspicious of him from the start, sensing something hidden deep within his eyes. Even so, Ophelia treated him with all her heart, and Alicia's objections couldn't stop her from bringing him into their home. That was the Saintess's only mistake. Wherever Ophelia went, Nyx followed, even though the signs were already very obvious. But her affection for him blinded her, preventing her from realizing that the object of his obsession was not Ophelia herself, but her divine power. In the stillness of the night, Teresa petals quietly fell. The last petal landed softly on the ground, no longer a pure purple, but stained crimson with pools of blood, foreshadowing the arrival of the family's demise. The truth was revealed. The young wanderer, Nyx, was actually a fallen priest who had begun to worship Ulf, a dark power, and Ophelia's divine power was the key to awakening the slumbering dark god. Nyx's purpose was to extract holy water from Ophelia and offer it to the dark god. Because he failed, he instead unleashed the god's terrifying power upon their land. Thousands were sacrificed in the ritual, including Alicia's family. They sacrificed themselves to buy her time to escape. Alicia, run. Everything she cherished was taken away in an instant. She desperately dragged her skirt, rushing into the thick night. The demon's hands reached out, vividly reflected in Alicia's hollow, wide eyes, like an indelible curse of death. When she awoke, exhausted, the sound of a baby's cries reached her ears. Alicia found herself in a desolate place. A vast area with her nephew, Alfred, beside her. In the distance, something glimmered, catching Alicia's attention. It was her father's signet ring. Alicia picked up the ring, her hand unconsciously clenching it tightly. On that day, she made a vow. Holding the crying child in her arms, Alicia swore to herself that she would survive, no matter the cost, and rebuild the Melfont family from the ruins. Once Alicia restored the family's honor, Alfred, her only surviving blood relative, would wear this ring and continue the family legacy. As for Ophelia, the root of this tragedy, she chose to run away, leaving her adopted sister to fend for herself. All Alicia could say was that her extreme resentment and hatred for her sister had made her who she was today. Back in the present, whispers continued. Alicia scoffed cowards. To achieve her ambition, she abandoned aristocratic pride and entered the world of commerce, becoming a wine merchant. Through relentless effort, Alicia revived the Melfont family in just 10 years. Two nearby, nobles gossiped about her jewelry. Look at the size of that gem she's wearing. It must be worth a fortune. The other replied with disdain, yes, a fortune scraped together from selling wine. And she still calls herself a noble. The wine glass paused at Alicia's lips. Stopping abruptly, she turned to look at them. Startled, the two men immediately fell silent. Alicia approached them. With an elegant smile, she invited them. Gentlemen, please feel free to visit Ramdeck. Our guild's jewels are usually reserved for royalty, but I'll show you our wares for free. Alicia deliberately clinked glasses with the man who had scorned her, adding provocatively, because I don't think you could afford them. Alicia calmly turned away, ignoring the nobleman who was now flushed with humiliation. Talk about me behind my back all you want, she thought as she strolled leisurely. Noble pride, and all that means nothing to me. I'm just paving the way. All of this was for her beloved nephew, Alfred, until he could stand on his own. Just then, fireworks suddenly shot into the sky, bursting into brilliant colors. The nobles were all captivated by the shimmering display. This perplexed Alicia. These fireworks, such a waste of money. They should reconsider how taxes are used. The next moment, a scream came from somewhere unknown. Boom! A terrible explosion erupted amidst a cloud of thick smoke. Alicia knelt on the ground, covering her mouth as she coughed. What happened? Cough, cough. Alicia glared. There's no time to waste. Her hands groped forward on the ground. I have to get out of here now. Suddenly, someone approached from behind, his figure casting a shadow over Alicia. She froze. This feeling. Alicia looked up. No way. Nyx looked down at Alicia, sneering. Alicia Melfont. It's been a while, hasn't it? She stiffened, seemingly unable to believe her eyes. Nyx chuckled derisively. So you're still alive. You're so stubborn. Alicia Melfont. Alicia cursed under her breath. Damn it. Brushing her messy hair aside, she retorted sharply. Aren't you too? I heard you were sealed by the cathedral clergy the day you slaughter my people. Alicia sneered. But it seems a despicable stalker like you found a way to slip out. I thought your corpse was already rotting in prison. What a pity. Nyx clicked his tongue. TSK, your tongue is as sharp as ever. He crossed his arms and looked around. But where is she? Where have you hidden her? She thought, what are you talking about? A sinister glint flashed in Nyx's eyes as he questioned Alicia. Ophelia. She's here, isn't she? She cursed inwardly. Damn it, just when I thought things couldn't get any worse. He brings up Ophelia. Great. Alicia clenched her hands, her resolve hardening. I have to find a way to keep him here, until the clergy arrive. Alicia scoffed at Nyx. You poor fool. It seems you really don't know. She lied to him. Ophelia died that day. A feeling of unease settled in her heart. Did it work? Nyx froze, his face becoming cold and expressionless. He curled his lip. Lies. The demonic arm lashed out. Panic flared in Alicia. No. With a thud, the arm struck the back of her neck. Alicia collapsed to the ground. One of Nyx's subordinates hoisted her over his shoulder. Her eyes closed, head lolling. She silently repeated Ophelia's name in her mind. The ring on her finger pulsed faintly. Alicia lamented inwardly. Did you ever think that my life would be put in danger again because of you? Damn you, Ophelia. With a clang, she was locked in a cell. Nyx's subordinate ordered the jailer, keep an eye on that woman. Await Lord Nyx's orders. A while later, Alicia groggily came to. She was disoriented. Where am I? What's going to happen to me? I can't die here. I still have to take care of little Alfred and my wine business. Wake up. Alicia Melfont. Blood trickled down Alicia's forehead. She squinted. Someone is waiting for you. Wake up. With a whoosh, a bat perched on the cell wall flapped its wings and flew away. Alicia fell into a void filled with purple hues. Teresa, flower petals, floated gently like the breath of a dream. Her face went blank. Alicia turned her head in surprise, looking around. What's going on? Her thoughts jumped. Am I dreaming? Alicia grumbled. I must be exhausted. Suddenly, a rustling sound came from behind her, and she immediately turned around. A mysterious light shone down, illuminating an open book resting on a shimmering surface of water amidst cascading flowers. Alicia was stunned. A book. She bent down and picked up the book. Alicia asked curiously, a book floating on the lake. What's going on now? The title of the book was Ophelia's Night. She pursed her lips skeptically. Just by looking at it, I can tell this isn't a happy story." Alicia flipped to the first page. The title of the novel was Ophelia's Night, but strangely, the pages were all about her life, which gradually confused Alicia. This is about me. Each page of the book revealed the horrifying truth of what really happened that night. As Nyx unleashed death and destruction upon the Melfont Manor, Ophelia didn't hesitate to rush to save little Alfred. So she went straight to her sister, Alicia, but by the time she arrived, Alicia's bloodline had already been offered to the god of darkness. Alicia murmured, "The memories are still hazy, but they're slowly coming back to me. That ghostly hand grabbed me, and in just a few seconds, I died." A light suddenly flashed across her forehead. Ophelia used almost all of her power to revive Alicia. As for Nyx, he slowly approached Ophelia from behind, and with the last of the holy water, she sealed the fallen priest, Nyx. With news of the god of darkness's imprisonment spreading, peace seemed within reach. But 10 years later, Nyx's remaining followers devised a method to free their master from his shackles. Arfo's servants awoke from their long slumber, and Nyx once again began his search for Ophelia. Alicia surmised that this was why Nyx had come to the royal capital, because he sensed Ophelia's divine power within me. She stopped abruptly, quickly realizing that this was why he had asked her about Ophelia. If I can somehow control her power, I can deal him a fatal blow. Alicia thought to herself, but how? I must keep reading. There must be a clue in this book. She continued to the second page. It wasn't long before Alicia realized she had overlooked a very important fact. The aura within her seemed to have stopped. What is this? The title couldn't be ignored, for undoubtedly, the protagonist of this story, Ophelia's Night, was not Alicia, but Ophelia. Having shaken off the shackles of the supreme power, Nyx went to a remote and desolate land, building himself a derelict fortress named Tantaro. Then he found a way to lure Ophelia into his trap by bringing Alicia to her, step by step. When Ophelia had no choice but to accept this cruel invitation, she had to witness Nyx strangle her sister. Ophelia screamed in anguish, "No, Nyx, stop." He looked at her with a sinister smile. "Thank you, Alicia Melfont. It was your desperate resistance that brought my saint here." Nyx grabbed Alicia's head right in front of Ophelia. Alicia touched her neck in surprise. "What does this mean? Am I destined to die here?" She cried out in anger. "Unacceptable. Ophelia gave me her holy water. I can't die so easily." Alicia hurriedly flipped through the pages. "If I knew how to use this power, I could heal my wounds." The plot continued to unfold, and just as Nyx's blade pierced Alicia's flesh, the holy water that had helped her live for 10 years returned to its owner, imbuing Ophelia's body, mind, and soul with even greater power. Wielding the power of righteousness and fury, this time, Ophelia swiftly sealed the fallen priest, preventing Arfo's return. The god of darkness, thus ending the story of Ophelia, Mara's favored one and savior. After reading the book, Alicia remained in a daze for a long time. Tick-tock, a salty drop of water landed on the white paper. "What are you trying to tell me?" She cried out in frustration. "Do you want me to die so that Ophelia can have a happy ending?" Alicia froze. "Do you want me to die so that Ophelia can have a happy ending?" She laughed bitterly. "Haha, no, inacceptable." Alicia fell to her knees, the despair seemingly about to consume her soul. "This is just a nightmare that will soon pass," she whispered. Clutching her head in agony, she continued, "I have to wake up from this nightmare. Alfred is still waiting for me. The Melfont family needs me." Suddenly, a shout rang out, "Wake up!" Alicia jolted awake. She sat up, holding her forehead and groaning. "Why can't I wake up? Isn't this just a dream?" Clang! As she lifted her wrists, Alicia realized she was bound by heavy shackles. She looked around in a panic. Everywhere she looked, there were only damp, cold stone walls. Alicia thought, a fortress built in a remote and desolate land, far from the surveillance of the supreme power. Outside the cell, angry voices echoed, "Help! Let us out!" She quickly realized that they were holding prisoners here to be sacrificed to the god of darkness. A deep voice said, "The path of the god of darkness, Arfo, will lead your souls into the deepest depths of hell." Alicia was shocked, and Nyx's strange chanting only made things worse. The sound of flapping bat wings echoed through the cell. She muttered to herself, "So this is Tantaro, Nyx's lair." Looking at her wrists, Alicia murmured uncomfortably. His servants must have forged these shackles too. They're really heavy. Alicia covered her face with her hands and sighed. Well, things are going to get interesting soon. Now, everything is happening exactly like in the book. Her eyes suddenly widened. Wait. Alicia looked up at the ceiling of the cell, where ugly spiders were crawling and spinning webs. She was confused. So, does this mean I'm going to die here? Alicia encouraged herself. I can't give up. There must be a way out. She analyzed. If that book is correct, then Ophelia's divine power is now flowing in my blood. Once I figure out how to use it, escaping this fortress will be as easy as turning my hand. Alicia clenched her fists. Maybe I can even control this power. A triumphant smile spread across her face. She would deliver the final blow to that bastard Nyx. He would pay for everything he had done to the Melfont family. Just then, footsteps and hushed voices came from outside. Is that woman locked up in here? Yes. Alicia jumped to her feet, her body tense and on guard. She tugged at the chains, forcing herself to think. How did Ophelia gather her strength? Alicia yanked at the chains, but they remained unyielding. Damn it, I have to do something before they take me away. She squeezed her eyes shut, calling out her sister's name in her heart. Save me, Ophelia. At that moment, a light flashed from Alicia's chest. This startled the jailers. One asked, where did that sound come from? The other replied indifferently, it must be the Arpho god answering Master Nyx's plea. The Lord of Hell has finally descended upon this land. The two jailers opened Alicia's cell, their intentions clear. Bring that woman to Master Nyx. He can't wait any longer. Get out, you bitch. Alicia lowered her head, her expression obscured by a dark shadow. The jailers stopped involuntarily, a sense of unease washing over them. A dazzling light appeared on Alicia's forehead. She sneered, can't wait to go to hell. I'll grant your wish. A brilliant flash of light engulfed the entire prison tower. In the distance, flocks of birds took flight in panicked flaps. They scattered in all directions. Nyx's subordinates were thrown back by the violent energy. They screamed. Alicia collapsed, enveloped in a dazzling halo. She waved her hand, marveling, amazing. Alicia floated in midair, effortlessly breaking through the entire tower. It's real, she gasped. Her power has been hidden inside me all along. She gritted her teeth, seething with hatred for the author who had wasted so much ink on Ophelia's night. If you think I'll accept the ending you wrote, you're wrong. Alicia laughed triumphantly, madness gleaming in her eyes. Just you wait, because no amount of ink can save your book now. Haha, from this chaos, I shall break the seal. Suddenly, a heavy thud echoed as Alicia crashed to the ground, completely stunned. Alicia felt uneasy. Seems like I overdid it. The highest floor, I crashed through all the levels in a single fall. She clenched her fists, determination etched on her face. Alicia gently lifted her skirt and stood up. Now, I need to find a way to get out of here quickly. Ignoring her torn wounds, she hurried away. Alfred is still waiting for me. Think, Alicia, think. Soon, Nyx's subordinates caught up to Alicia. There she is. After her. She snorted and took off running. One of them grabbed the hem of her long red skirt, and Alicia tumbled to the ground. She tugged at the fabric in frustration. Oh, I swear, this dress. Alicia's eyes suddenly widened in surprise. Just as she thought she was about to be captured again, a transparent barrier materialized, blocking all her pursuers. Nyx's minions could only stand helplessly outside, pounding on it. What are these fools doing? Alicia thought. Looking at the barrier's boundary, she surmised, it must be my power that created this barrier to stop them. Alicia grinned smugly. Good. Clutching her skirt, Alicia thought, the only thing you'll get from me is a piece of my dress. The subordinates pounded furiously on the shield. You bitch, get out of here. Bang, bang. She staggered to her feet, a large portion of her skirt ripped away. Alicia looked indifferently at the subordinates, making a fuss outside. Gently touching her wrist, she murmured, your powers saved me again, Ophelia. Alicia gave a wry smile. But I won't thank you for it, she said softly. So, Alicia addressed Nyx's minions, taking advantage of her freedom, arms crossed, mocking them. Let me ask you something, you fools. Why would anyone want to be a servant of Arphi? Oh wait, Arpho. It's not like he's bestowed any power upon you anyway. At her words, the group immediately went berserk. They roared, you bitch, watch your mouth. Alicia turned her head coldly and walked away indifferently, ignoring the shrill curses. The god of darkness will punish you. The heavy pounding continued behind her. Alicia stepped onto a patch of gray earth. Staring at her palms, she furrowed her brows slightly in confusion. But how did I do that? I don't even know what I did to activate this power. As much as it pains me to admit it, the only way to escape from here is to use the information from the novel. Alicia tugged lightly at her dress. After all, everything has happened as the book foretold, she reasoned. According to the novel's description, there's a pool at the end of this tunnel. That place is used to imprison the power of the Holy Knight, a power strong enough to plunge the world into chaos. His name is Normandius. In the original story, Ophelia used the power she regained after death to free the Holy Knight from his imprisonment. Current. This is an important event, so Alicia is determined to act first and interrupt this crucial turning point. I need to act before she does and use him to escape from here. She anxiously looked around. Let me see. Alicia lifted her skirt, turning her head back and forth, searching everywhere. I don't see any lake or stream large enough to drown a grown man. Turning around, her foot accidentally stepped into a puddle. What is this? Alicia was startled. Her eyes widened in surprise. Just ahead, under the faint light of the cave, was a surface shimmering with silver. Alicia was certain this was it, the hidden current. She bent down curiously for a closer look. But this looks more like a shallow puddle than a current, Alicia commented. Touching the surface, she muttered to herself, I need to see what this is. Alicia lifted her skirt, revealing her scarred, white legs. She stepped right into the water. Deeper than it looks, but it's only up to my ankles, Alicia estimated. Her whole body suddenly stumbled. Alicia said, confused. Splash. She was completely sucked into the depths of the water. No. Alicia struggled desperately. Through gritted teeth, she hissed, damn it, I should have known this was a trap. Alicia took the opportunity to fumble around, her fingers accidentally brushing against an unfamiliar hand. Alicia turned her head in surprise. Beside her, a handsome man with platinum blonde hair was sleeping peacefully. It was definitely him, Normandius. Holding her breath underwater, Alicia quietly observed Norman's handsome features. Alicia involuntarily recalled Nyx's lewd laughter, and a sudden unease washed over her. Nyx, that disgusting, depraved name. I wonder if he imprisoned Norman here. Because of his looks, Alicia shook her head, dispelling the disgusting images she had just conjured. She looked at Norman carefully, an indescribable feeling rising in her heart. This is the first time I've seen such a beautiful person. Alicia reached out and touched Norman's ear. He's still so young, as if time has been frozen, she marveled inwardly. The moment the curse was sealed within him, Norman fell into an eternal slumber. Alicia pursed her lips slightly. She reached out and grabbed the hem of his shirt. The distance between them gradually closed, so close that Alicia could feel Norman's faint breaths. In that moment, the intention of using him was completely thrown to the back of her mind. She knew she was acting purely on instinct. Alicia suddenly stopped, thinking to herself, forget it. With all her might, she pulled Norman out of the water, only one thought in her mind. I have to save him first. By the time they were both safely on shore, Alicia was nearly exhausted. Her breathing was ragged, and she was utterly drained. I have to train my stamina, she reproached herself. If I'm this breathless after swimming for only a little while, how am I supposed to save anyone? Panting, Alicia complained to Norman, huff, huff, I'm telling you, almost drowned you again. You're ridiculously heavy. He didn't answer, his eyes remaining closed, his face still pale, as if he had stopped breathing long ago. Her eyes widened. Wait. Alicia anxiously leaned over Norman. He's not dead, is he? She tried placing her hand under his nose to check. Alicia breathed a sigh of relief. He's alive. He looks like a princess. The atmosphere suddenly became silent. She anxiously patted Norman's face. Listen, princess, you have to wake up before that crazy demon worshiper finds me. Suddenly, a familiar voice came from behind her. Alicia Melfont. She instantly jumped up in fright and turned around. Nyx, like a lingering ghost, stood tall before Alicia, and a wave of unease washed over her. He gave a terrifying smile, questioning Alicia, where did you hide Ophelia? She panicked. What are you talking about? Nyx closed in on Alicia step by step. Try to remain calm, she replied. Did you forget that I told you Ophelia is dead? He interrupted her. No, you're lying, Nyx emphasized. I can feel her power still flowing within you. With that, he abruptly grabbed Alicia's shoulders, his grip tightening. Damn it, she cursed inwardly. Madman, you must have felt Ophelia's power when I activated my power to get down here, Alicia surmised. She glared at Nyx resentfully. Just then, his attention was suddenly drawn to something else. Huh. Nyx shifted his gaze to the side. That's Normandius, he thought. How did you free him? Nyx gave a twisted smile. It wasn't you, was it? No. He looked around excitedly like a madman. It's Ophelia. She must have come here to free Norman. Alicia's heart was in her throat. Her fingers, which were on the ground, twitched. Whoosh. Slap. Alicia slapped Nyx directly across the face. He was stunned, glancing at her in disbelief. Eat this, Alicia shouted. She added insult to injury. This is the divine power you so desperately crave. Alicia deliberately revealed to Nyx, after sealing you away that day, Ophelia used all her remaining power to revive me. Now, I'm the one who inherited her power. His expression became contorted and twitching. No, impossible. Nyx roared madly, clutching his head. No, 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 no. You wench. Seeing his agony, Alicia felt a sliver of satisfaction for the years of resentment and humiliation she had endured. Yes, now you know what the despair I experience feels like. Nyx glared at her resentfully. Demon, insidious creature. How could someone like you be worthy of Ophelia's power? His hand trembled as he raised it towards Alicia. She taunted, it's a pity. Even if you want to kill me, you can't. Nyx's eyes widened, almost bulging out of their sockets. Alicia decisively exposed him, because you know that would mean saying goodbye to that precious power. The power you've always craved. Nyx covered his face and knelt down in despair. I don't believe it. Ophelia is a divine being. She couldn't have died so easily. Nyx slowly removed his hands from his face, his trembling fingers pulling down the skin beneath his eyes, revealing a dull, lifeless expression. In that moment, he looked as if he had aged 10 years. Alicia frowned. Nyx kept muttering to himself, repeating some strange language. He suddenly grabbed her injured foot. Nyx looked at her, eyes gleaming with obsession, a heavy accusation hissing through his teeth. You liar. How dare you deceive me? Alicia retorted in alarm. After taking a punch from me, feeling my divine power, you still dare to say that. Alicia suddenly shivered, a deathly voice echoing above her head. Kill this mortal, and Ophelia will return. Nyx gloated, pressing down on her. Did you hear that? That's the voice of the god, Arpho. Once I finish you off, everything will return to its original course. With that, he reached out and squeezed Alicia's neck. She was pressed against the cold ground, her throat constricted, coughing painfully in despair. Nyx laughed savagely. You don't know what that power can do. His grip on Alicia's neck tightened. Nyx rambled. All that precious energy will escape from you, meaning you're just a useless vessel. Tightening his fingers, he declared triumphantly, Die, Alicia Melfont, die in pain and fear. She tried to push Nyx's hand away, but failed. Alicia looked to the side, tears welling up involuntarily. No, despite her tears, Normandius was still fast asleep, showing no signs of waking up. Looking at the face of the man so close to her, Alicia's heart trembled, and the desire to survive surged within her. I didn't risk everything to die like this. She opened her tear-filled eyes. I don't want to die. Alicia was unwilling to give up. It can't end like this. The next moment, a flash of light suddenly appeared. Nyx yelled, "Aha!" He was suddenly flung into a corner. Alicia exhaled. She had never felt air so precious. Alicia propped herself up, clutching her neck and coughing. What happened? A gentle hand wiped the tears from the corner of Alicia's eyes. The platinum hair man before her said gently, You're safe now. Alicia was stunned. Normandius created a shimmering shield, protecting them both. Alicia was astonished. A divine barrier. She quickly realized this was why Nyx had been pushed back. He raised his eyes angrily and commanded, TSK, come here, Alicia Melfont. Fear and surprise gripped her as Nyx's haunting voice echoed in Alicia's mind. You can't escape from my grasp. She froze. I hear his voice in my head. He even threatened, wherever you run, you'll have to come back to me. She couldn't take it anymore. Alicia shouted, get out. Nyx warned, I'm giving you a chance. Offer your pure body to the god of darkness. She shuddered. That monster. So he covets my body. Normandius asked Alicia gently, does that man want to hurt you? She replied, yes. A fallen priest sacrificed everyone in the Melfont territory to his master, Arfo. Alicia's voice was filled with hatred. He must not be allowed to live. He asked, "Are you the daughter of the Melfont family?" She lowered her head, fighting back tears, and choked out, "I was, but now I'm the head of the family, the only survivor. It leaves me no choice." At that moment, Alicia suddenly felt Nyx's fierce gaze lock onto her. He abruptly stood up, countless blue demonic hands sprouting from his back. Nyx sneered, "Fool." The hands lunged towards Alicia and Normandius. The hands slammed against the shield, and he immediately countered with his own power. However, cracks began to appear. Alicia said worriedly, "He's about to break the barrier." She trembled, clutching Normandius' arm, pleading, "Please don't let him kill me." He looked at Alicia blankly. Alicia looked back at Normandius in a panic. He patted her hand gently and declared, "I'm sorry to say this." Normandius' gaze swept over the raging Nyx behind him. He stated firmly, "But I can't destroy that thing right now." He declared gravely, "However, we can still buy some time." Nyx looked at Normandius with contempt. "Give up. That pathetic barrier won't save you." He gave a haughty smile. "I will tear you to shreds and offer your blood to the god of darkness." Demonic hands reached towards them, touching the shield. The shield shattered instantly, and the demonic hands lunged at Alicia, trying to seize her. She thought in despair, "Is this the end?" At this critical moment, a flash of light suddenly cut through the air, and Nyx fell to the ground. Alicia stared in surprise at the back of the man who had unhesitatingly shielded her. It was Norman, who had created another shield to protect her. She had to admit, this holy knight, who possessed the power to upset the world's balance. The moment he turned his head, Alicia became even more certain that he was one of the characters prophesied to cause her death in the novel. This man was both a warning of future danger and the sole salvation of her soul. The cave suddenly rumbled, and rocks fell. Norman, protecting Alicia, declared, "We have to get out of here now." A chuckle came from behind them, attracting their attention. Nyx lay in a pool of blood, his eyes vacant, his smile twisted and savage. "Why are you so stubborn? Can't you see? It's all pointless." His pupils gradually lost focus. Nyx weakly reminded Alicia, deep down, "You know you're just walking into a trap." He manipulated her thoughts. "No matter what you do, death will come." Alicia stumbled, clutching her head, and retorted, "Impossible. I won't just sit here and wait for death." Nyx threatened, "You're nothing but a temporary vessel for Ophelia's divine power." That sentence made Alicia's mind go blank. Fortunately, Norman noticed in time. He comforted her, "Is he talking inside your head? He wants to plant fear in your heart to weaken you. You have to resist him." Norman placed his hand on Alicia's shoulder and gently encouraged her. "I know you're strong enough to do this. You're the savior who freed me from my seal." After all this time, he affirmed resolutely, "You could survive this too." Norman said to Alicia, "Forgive my rudeness, but we have to hurry." With that, he scooped her up in a princess carry. Norman lowered his head. "I'll get you out of here alive, I swear." They turned and walked out of the collapsing cave. Behind them, Nyx still lay motionless on the stone floor, chuckling like a madman. His lips were stretched back to his ears, his smile saturated with madness, as if everything had just begun. Norman had just left with Alicia. Like that fissure, something shattered, and a gloomy voice replayed like a curse. "The path of the dark god Arfo will lead your souls into the deepest depths of hell." The path of the dark god Arfo will lead your souls into the deepest depths of hell. Ophelia awoke from her nightmare, gasping in fear. This startled a nearby cloaked man. Ophelia, the second son of the Diaz family, Nicholas Diaz, stepped forward. He asked Ophelia with concern, "You're finally awake. How are you feeling?" She weakly asked Nicholas, "Nicholas, how long have I been unconscious? How many days has it been since the celebration?" He replied, "Less than a day." "Don't worry." Nyx couldn't achieve his goal. Nicholas gently embraced Ophelia, soothing her, "There's still time. He hasn't killed Alicia yet." She unconsciously tightened her arms, blaming herself. "It's such a shame that I fainted when I was needed the most." One of Nicholas's soldiers suggested to Ophelia, "I think we have enough clues to find him. My men will pinpoint his lair. You two rest for a bit." She calmly stood up, objecting, "There's no time. We have to leave immediately." He said anxiously, "But we don't know where he's hiding." Ophelia coldly uttered a name, "Tantaro." Nicholas curiously asked his subordinate, "Tantaro, do you know where that is?" He replied, "No, sir. I'm not even sure I've heard that name." She hesitated. "I can't explain it, but the name and the location of his hidden fortress suddenly appeared in my mind." Nicholas looked at Ophelia's back, puzzled. He thought, Ophelia's intuition is never wrong. If Tantaro really is Nyx's lair, then I might be able to find more clues about Norman's whereabouts there. Nicholas unconsciously recalled Norman's familiar figure, always reaching out, kindly calling his name, Nicholas. Nicholas hesitated, thinking, who knows, maybe he's waiting for me too. He resolutely stood up and ordered, prepare to depart, Jack. Jack replied, yes, sir. On Alicia's side, the moment Norman lifted her up high, she felt a wave of dizziness. I'm flying. Alicia felt a sense of unreality, thinking, am I dreaming? He reassured her, close your eyes for a moment. Norman was too close to Alicia, their faces too near, making her flustered. Man, how am I supposed to close my eyes when you're this close? When he landed, he continued to hold Alicia tightly, carefully protecting her. Norman gently loosened his grip on Alicia. He had her kneel on a rock, knelt opposite her, and carefully asked, are you hurt anywhere? Alicia was about to reply, I think I'm all right, where her heart skipped a beat. The image of the demonic claws suddenly flashed before Alicia's eyes. I was so focused on surviving, I completely forgot. I was attacked by Nyx's magic. I almost died. And that monster ruined everything. Alicia swayed, and Norman quickly caught her, alarmed. My lady. Hot tears streamed down Alicia's cheeks as she clutched her chest, gasping for breath. It hurts, I can't breathe. I've endured so much. But to die in a place like this, please. Alicia's vision blurred, and she could no longer see Norman's face, only hear his anxious voice. Calm down. She trembled and collapsed into Norman's arms, gasping and coughing. His eyes were filled with worry. She's hyperventilating from a shock. Norman tightened his grip on Alicia's slender shoulders. I won't let you die here, I swear. He apologized preemptively. Forgive me if this is improper. Norman untied Alicia's sash. He loosened the front of her dress so she could breathe more easily. Fortunately, Alicia's breathing gradually evened out. Seeing her open her eyes, Norman was overjoyed. Are you feeling better? Alicia looked dazed. Am I still alive? He gave a gentle smile. Yes, you're alive. She looked at her hands and gasped. Tears streamed down Alicia's face in bewilderment. The story changed. Nyx didn't kill me. She sobbed in his arms. I was so scared, but I finally survived. I did it. Norman gently comforted Alicia. Yes, you're safe now. Everything will be all right. Nyx's haunting voice still seemed to echo in her mind. You can't escape death forever, Alicia Melfont. Alicia thought desperately, can I truly escape that tragic ending? He soothed her gently. Please rest on my shoulder for a while. What she needed most now was sleep. Meanwhile, at the Tantaro fortress, Jack asked Ophelia, the entire fortress is destroyed. What do you think happened here? Just then, someone ran up to report to him. Commander, I found a heretical priest. He's lying under the rubble. Jack was startled by the news. Ophelia urgently told him, quickly send word to the clergy at the temple. He must be sealed immediately. Jack nodded in agreement. Understood. He turned to his subordinate and ordered, lead the way. She gazed blankly at the setting sun. Once Nyx is completely sealed, well, no, I'm not sure, but something has changed. As night fell, Norman stopped with Alicia in a clearing. Soon, the bonfire he had lit was blazing. The flickering flames illuminated Norman's contemplative face, and he sighed. The scenery hasn't changed at all. Norman gently lowered his head. Looking at Alicia, sleeping peacefully in his arms like a child, her words echoed in his mind. Back then, I was the pillar of my family. Being the sole survivor left me no choice. He sighed with heartache. Though the world turned upside down while I slept, I can't imagine how much they suffered. Memories flooded back. The image of the black-haired boy being taken away before Norman's eyes, still struggling and screaming his name. Norman, no. Norman squeezed his eyes shut in pain. Everything that happened is my fault. On that green meadow, he had confessed to Iago, Normandius Soy, that's my name. He hesitated. That name, Soy, is a name bestowed by God, used only within the family. Norman had revealed this name to a fellow knight, comrade, and close friend who had fought alongside him through thick and thin. Norman smiled warmly. I'm telling you this because I consider you a brother. Iago, who had affirmed to him, your family. Yet, even though they fought side by side like heroes of the Empire, betrayal was what ultimately awaited Norman. He choked up, facing Iago. Why Iago? He stood opposite him, holding Nicholas hostage, his face filled with resentment, cursing Norman. Come, O death, shatter and destroy the soul of my enemy, Norman Diaz Soy. It wasn't until the red spell surged forth that he saw the deep-seated hatred in the other man's heart. Using this secret, Iago summoned an ancient curse. Using the cursed one's full name, Norman. The curse struck him, and his entire body began to crumble. Norman still persisted in persuading him. Don't do it, Iago. The summoner of a curse always pays a heavy price. Iago sneered coldly. I've hated you since the moment we met. Boom! It was like a painful slap in the face, completely stunning him. Iago gloated, tormenting Norman. If it weren't for you, everything would have been perfect. Norman, surrender, he declared, and die the way you deserve. The curse had spread to his face, yet he could no longer feel anything. A tear fell, the wounds of his heart outweighing the physical pain. Nicholas cried out in defiance. No, the boy struggled relentlessly. Let me go. Nicholas unconsciously reached out, reflexively calling for Norman. In that moment, if Nicholas hadn't awakened Norman's divine power to stop the curse, his body would have already turned to ash. Along with his shattered soul, Norman was forced to sink into the depths of the icy, bloody water. Because of the extreme hatred emanating from Iago, disappear, Norman die. He was thrown into an endless, cursed darkness. The curse not only tormented his body, but also crushed Norman's spirit. Iago's venomous words echoed all around, oppressing their precious memories. From the moment we first met, I've hated you. Intertwined with this was Nicholas's mournful cry, don't abandon me, Norman and Diego. His face twisted. Iago laughed malevolently. If it weren't for you, everything would be perfect. All Norman could do was desperately wait for the end to come. Deep down, he didn't want to die. Until her voice reached Norman's ears. That's not true. The person in his arms suddenly stirred. Norman slowly opened his eyes, the crackling flames illuminating his bewildered face. Norman realized with a jolt that he had not just remembered the past. He paused slightly. Alicia seemed to be having a nightmare, moaning incessantly. Looking closely now, Alicia's forehead, neck, and palms were covered in wounds. Norman frowned, a pang of heartache flashing in his eyes. He reached out, gently stroking her forehead. Norman's pupils dilated involuntarily. Her body is too hot, he thought. Norman became hesitant. I shouldn't rely too much on divine power, but there's no other way right now. The next moment, his palms suddenly lit up. Norman tenderly healed Alicia. He worried that she was both physically and mentally traumatized, which was only natural after experiencing something like that. She pulled him from the lake with all these injuries. Norman subconsciously tightened his arms, and he himself wasn't exactly something luminous. He thoughtfully pulled the blanket higher around her. Was it the fear of death that gave her the strength to go on? At the same time, Norman tucked the blanket securely around Alicia so she wouldn't catch a cold. No, or rather, it was her will to live. Norman leaned wearily against the tree trunk and looked up blankly. Such a strong will to survive. It makes me wonder what kind of person she really is. Norman's thoughts were a little hazy. Maybe I'll understand her better when she wakes up. He couldn't remember the last time he had looked forward to the next day with such anticipation. In the book Ophelia's Night, it was written, thanks to Alicia's sacrifice, everything became possible. Alicia woke up in a panic. She hugged herself in terror. My hands are still there. Alicia trembled as she raised her hands to confirm. I'm not dead. She gradually calmed down. I'm still alive. Alicia snorted. Damn that book. She turned her head uncomfortably. Alicia found herself lying on a pure white mattress. She thought back, confused. I only remember escaping from Tantaro. The rest of my memories are too blurry. Alicia screamed, holding her head. I can't remember anything. She looked around in confusion. Where am I? What is this place? The door opened, and Norman walked in cheerfully, carrying a basket of apples. I'm back. Alicia demanded loudly. Who are you? Clang, the apple basket in his hands fell. Norman was dumbfounded. It turned out she was grabbing the homeowner's collar, fiercely threatening, don't try to fool me. Tell me your true identity. You're one of Nyx's lackeys, aren't you? The old man said helplessly, I'm just an old man. He hurriedly stopped Alicia. Please calm down. They're good people. That's why they let us stay here for free. She said irritably, that's even more suspicious. What's in it for them? Helping us without asking for anything in return. The elderly homeowner explained shyly, your dress was torn, and I could tell you probably didn't have much money left. Alicia was stunned, completely clueless about what they were talking about. However, when she reached down to touch herself, she understood her situation. She was wearing an old woman's nightgown, missing an earring, and her signet ring couldn't be sold. All Alicia's possessions were. Her shoes were gone too, leaving her barefoot. Alicia collapsed to the ground in despair. My silk dress and jewels. Norman apologized to the two homeowners on her behalf. "Please forgive us." The couple kindly replied, "It's all right." He sincerely thanked them, his handsome face suddenly radiant. "Thank you both for your understanding. She's been through a lot, so she's not as polite as usual." The two homeowners were moved by the aura of light emanating from Norman. What a kind-hearted boy. The scene changed. Norman closed the door. Now only he and Alicia were left in the room. He breathed a sigh of relief. Phew, she must have been terrified. Norman said to her, "You woke up earlier than I expected. I should have come back sooner to explain things to you." He added, "Anyway, I'm really glad to see you've recovered." Alicia wasn't listening to Norman at all, just absent-mindedly stroking her spotless white arm. The wound had already healed. Alicia thought, "Why am I recovering so fast?" She wondered, "It's thanks to your divine power, isn't it?" Norman was immediately startled. He placed a fruit basket on the table, deliberately avoiding Alicia's question. "You must be hungry. Since we don't have any money to buy anything, I found some food in the nearby forest." Norman handed her a juicy red fruit. "Here, you can eat this." Alicia accepted it with surprise, suddenly feeling a little uneasy. Mr. Norman," she asked curiously. "What is it, miss?" Alicia stammered, "While I was asleep, who helped me change into these clothes?" Norman answered honestly, "The old woman, of course. Your dress was soaked and covered in mud." She nodded, "Ah, I see." Alicia hesitated. "There's one more thing." She continued to question him. "How long has it been since we escaped? Where are we exactly? I need to know what happened to Nyx after the Tantaro fortress collapsed." Norman looked puzzled. "Nyx?" Alicia replied, "Yes, the skinny priest who attacked you. His name is Nyx." She demanded seriously, "I want a brief but detailed explanation." Norman pondered. "Well," he explained, "Nyx suffered a fatal blow from divine power. He'll be paralyzed for at least 2 weeks, maybe even a month if not longer." Norman was extremely self-reproachful. "It's a pity I didn't finish him off when I had the chance. Being sealed for so long drained too much of my power." While chatting, he always wore a bright smile, yet this made Alicia suspicious. He kept talking and smiling. "It made me scared." Norman narrated, "After escaping the fortress, you slept for 2 days straight." She thought in a panic asleep. "I thought I was unconscious the whole time." He continued, "I carried you through the forest until I found this village." "This must be Thule," Alicia deduced. "Thule, a village near the border between the royal capital and the eastern region." Norman praised, "You're really familiar with the map." She estimated, "It's not too far from the Romdak Guild's headquarters. It should be easy to find our way back." He interrupted, "By the way, Mississippi." Norman hesitated. "I wanted to ask." She said bluntly, "Ask away." He hesitated. "Why did you?" Norman asked Alicia hesitantly, "Why did you know I was in that lake?" His voice carried a hint of sorrow. "I'm very confused." Norman was disappointed in himself. "You're my savior, but I don't even know who you are or why you saved me from the water." Her mind raced. "Careful. I can't say I read about him in a dream. That would be ridiculous." Alicia crossed her arms and replied with feigned indifference, "I just heard that the eldest son of the Diaz family had been missing for a long time." She lowered her eyelids, a gloomy look flashing in her eyes. "Well, I found you sealed underwater in Tantaro. I had a hunch it was you." Norman asked curiously, "Then, do you know why Nyx kidnapped and sealed me?" Alicia fell silent. Perhaps she didn't know herself. Alicia revealed to him, his goal is to become an apostle of the god of darkness, Arpho. Thousands of years ago, Arpho unsealed the 7 deadly sins upon the world. Humans began to slaughter each other with their newfound blasphemous powers. Seeing her beloved children on the brink of extinction, the goddess of life, Mera, creator of the world, bestowed her holy water upon humanity. She defeated the god of darkness and sealed him away. Then, the goddess confined and imprisoned Arpho's fallen curses within a book to banish them from the memories of her children. Humanity hid this book deep within a temple to conceal it until the end of time. However, Nyx, a priest bestowed with divine power, easily gained access to the forbidden book. Nyx declared, "Freedom and hatred, let us curse our enemies. That is the only way to liberation." The magic of curses and the power to control enemies were bestowed upon others. Die was too sweet a temptation for Nyx. Die was too sweet a temptation for Nyx, a mediocre priest who craved adoration. After defeating Norman, Nyx ordered a knight to seal him in his own prison as a trophy of his first act in the name of our foe's servant. Alicia thought, I want to be honest, but I can't just say he was a living trophy of the devil. Finally, she had to reveal the truth. Nyx sealed and cursed you with his divine power, then went to the Melfont territory. Alicia closed her eyes, narrating with difficulty. Before that, he was still a priest of Mara. He was granted dark powers. He wasn't granted dark powers until he slaughtered the people of Melfont. It was a disturbing story she never wanted to know. She concluded the story with a single sentence. In the end, Nyx was defeated by Ophelia, but his servants brought him back. Alicia hugged herself tightly. The first thing he did after waking up was kidnap me and bring me back to his prison. Norman said awkwardly, I'm sorry you had to go through all of this. She asked him cheerfully, now that the past is behind us, do you understand things better? Norman replied, yes, thank you. He frowned, a flicker of sadness in his eyes. So much has happened in these 10 years. The head of the family told me that this year marks the 500th anniversary of the founding of the Latens Empire. Norman scratched his head shyly. Nicholas must be all grown up now. I feel so guilty for making him worry all these years. He also didn't forget to introduce Nicholas to Alicia. Nicholas is my beloved younger brother. Alicia, remembering the man's irritating clicking of his tongue, felt uneasy. Nicholas Diaz, I've met him at a few parties. Norman's eyes lit up as he looked at her and asked eagerly, so you've met him. Is he doing well? Alicia replied, he's healthy, very healthy. But in her mind, she thought, how could he not be healthy? He's busy flirting with Ophelia. She gave a small smile, but her face was filled with dark lines. You'll be surprised to see how much he's grown. Inwardly, Alicia grumbled. If only you knew how arrogant he's become. Norman gave a bright, pure smile. I can't wait. Seeing his relieved expression, she was speechless. Yes, I'm happy for you too. He hesitated. By the way, miss, Norman asked Alicia, I don't think I've asked for your name yet. Alicia replied, then allow me to introduce myself. I am Alicia, the head of the Melfont family and the president of the Rondar Trade Guild. She extended her hand to him. The two clasped hands with a shared understanding. Norman was overjoyed. It's a pleasure to meet you, family. Nyx's voice whispered, Alicia Melfont. Find Alicia Melfont. He commanded arrogantly, bring the living Alicia Melfont before me. Then it will be. Before Nyx could finish his sentence, Nicholas and a group of white-robed individuals sealed him with the power of light. Jack and Ophelia watched from afar, and he muttered, what a headache. I didn't expect so many fugitives to have escaped. Ophelia turned away indifferently. I'll capture them all. Jack panicked and hurried to stop her. But Alicia Melfont hasn't withdrawn the warrant. It's too dangerous for you to act like this. Without turning back, Ophelia left only one sentence. If that doesn't work, use a similar method. She was restless. Everything must change. We must find another way. If things continue like this, Alicia Melfont will be in danger. Jack was confused. What? Elsewhere, a person in green robes quickly ran into the forest. The old man suddenly stopped. A ghostly light flickered in the old man's eyes, as if he were being controlled by someone. His tone was halting, robotic. Click. Tear Alicia Melfont to shreds. As an offering to the great god Arfo. At the Melfont estate, an announcement rang out. Sir, there's a letter for you. The person behind the desk immediately stood up. Erica silently opened the letter on the spot and murmured its contents. On behalf of the knights, I have equipped the imperial monarch with the most elite troops to undertake the important duty of responding to the recent widespread unrest within Latens. Nicholas stood at the city gate, watching the two knights ride away. Then he abruptly turned around. The letter continued, while en route to the western border of the empire, that we ascertained the location of the heretic Nyx's prison, Tantaro. There we learned that the populace had been kidnapped and killed by heretics as sacrifices to the god of darkness, Arfo. By the time we arrived, the Tantaro fortress had collapsed due to a mysterious attack, and the clergy of the cathedral had imprisoned the gravely injured Nyx, preparing to seal him once more. Unfortunately, the young lady kidnapped at the party remains missing. Several of Nyx's servants have escaped, so we advise avoiding contact with any missionaries or suspicious faiths. Erica quickly finished reading the final words. Signed, Knight Commander Nicholas Diaz. The maid beside her asked curiously, what in the world happened? Erica chose her words carefully. Well, what we know now is that Miss Alicia wasn't inside when the fortress collapsed. The maid hesitantly agreed. So, she lowered her eyes, voicing a painful guess. Perhaps Miss was killed before the knights arrived, and her body was disposed of. But Erica still clung to hope, or perhaps she escaped. Gleaming dishes filled the table as Alicia relentlessly sharpened her knife and fork. Norman opened the door and suggested, "Let me get you a hot drink." She turned her head and placed the cutlery on the table with a clang. Alicia chewed, calculating in her mind. The novel didn't give many details about him. I don't understand him. Norman's image flooded her mind. She had to resist him. His past urging voice echoed in her head. "I know you're strong enough to do it. After all, you're the savior who freed me from my seal after all this time." Norman looked her straight in the eyes and promised, "I swear I will get you out of here alive." Even now, recalling that moment, Alicia could still feel the sweetness of it. She quickly put down her knife, her mind racing back to the novel. The first day, I was kidnapped at the celebration and imprisoned in Tantaro's dungeon. I was unconscious for the next 2 days. That means 3 days have passed since I left the Melfont estate. I've used what little time I had to defy the plot and save my life, but I still don't know if there's enough time to change my tragic end. Alicia stabbed a piece of potato with her fork, affirming to herself, "But one thing's for sure. The later I return, the more danger my nephew is in. Cousin Gale will definitely try to replace me as young Alfred's guardian. He's been eyeing the Melfont family fortune since before Alfred's parents were murdered. Not to mention that foolish fiancé of mine, Philip Morepork. I know he's been waiting for the chance to get his hands on the money and run off with that woman he's obsessed with. Without me, Alfred will be completely at the mercy of those vultures. Just like I was left alone to fend off those greedy nobles who showed their true colors when our family fell from grace." Alicia gritted her teeth and muttered, "If you think I'll take this lying down, you're dead wrong." She abruptly stood up and declared. First, Alicia stated her plan decisively. "I have to get to the nearest city, Catham," because she knew very well that was where the Rondak Guild operated. But her most immediate concern was the travel expenses. Looking at her glittering earrings, Alicia said happily, "Got it." The next problem caused her an even bigger headache. "But I can't travel alone in this area." Alicia resolutely pushed open the door and left the room. She politely asked the woman in front of her, "Excuse me, do you know where I can hire a mercenary without paying up front?" They asked in surprise, "What about your husband?" Alicia exclaimed in confusion, "Husband." Just then, Norman walked in, as if summoned by their words. "Speak of the devil." He subtly flashed a harmless smile, while she frowned as if she wanted to swat a fly. Norman naturally took her hand and asked affectionately, "You must be hungry, my love." Alicia responded, completely bewildered, "I just ate 3 cakes." "Wait, what did you call me?" Norman ushered her out the door, urging, "Let's talk inside." The old man kept exclaiming, "Wonderful, wonderful," while the old woman chuckled, thinking, "Young love. How sweet." Once inside the room, Norman apologized. "I hope you can forgive me, Miss Alicia." Alicia crossed her arms and thoughtfully analyzed. "Well, this does make it easier to explain why we're traveling together." Then she looked directly at him, making her stance clear. "But I'm a person of influence, Mr. Norman. If we go somewhere and someone recognizes me, it will cause unnecessary rumors." Alicia took a bold step forward and suggested, "It's best to tell them the truth, since we'll be parting ways soon." Without a second thought, Norman immediately denied, "We will not be parting ways, Miss Alicia." She watched as he prepared to kneel, blurting out what? Norman extended his hand, pleading, "Please." He said only what he wanted to say. "Allow me to escort you back to your estate." Alicia was stunned, speechless at this gesture. She froze. All the words she wanted to say caught in her throat. Alicia was confused, but she couldn't afford to prioritize her own safety right now. She had a pressing goal, and regaining control of her territory was paramount, and Alicia needed to act quickly. However, Norman could become an obstacle to that goal. The return of the Diaz family's eldest son would draw everyone's scrutiny and invite unwanted gossip. Besides, his handsome appearance alone was enough to attract a crowd, which was another hassle Alicia didn't need. But truthfully, his presence made her uneasy. To her, he was a reminder that the curse in the book was real. Alicia lowered her head, expressing her feelings. "You make me uncomfortable." Norman let out a confused, instinctive sound. She heard him utter an "oh" and felt a surge of suspicion. It seemed Norman had another idea. "Let's stop pretending to be husband and wife from now on. I promise to be more careful in the future. I swear on my honor." She looked at his gleaming eyes and sighed inwardly. "Oh yes, that's part of the problem too." But Alicia took a deep breath and clarified, "No, you don't understand, Mr. Norman." She lowered her gaze, sharing her accomplishments of the past decade. "I revived the Melfont family with my business. Alicia declared confidently, "Our power no longer comes from lineage, but from trade and profit." She unhesitatingly exposed her vulnerability to him. "We chose survival over aristocratic dignity." Then, Alicia pointed out the difference between their situations. "They would welcome you with open arms, but for me, it's a completely different story." Alicia clutched her skirt, voicing the most likely outcome. "Seeing you return with the Melfont, which," she cried out the harsh reality, "would only give them more reason to get rid of me." Struck by her heartfelt words, Norman was speechless. Then, he sadly admitted, "I understand now." Norman stood up, reflecting on himself. "I admit, I haven't kept up with the changing world these past 10 years. Alicia looked away, thinking, he seems to be in pain. He looked directly at her and solemnly corrected, "Let me rephrase what you just said." Norman laid out her situation frankly. "You need to return to the Melfont estate as soon as possible, as someone is taking advantage of your absence." He also bluntly painted a picture that ignited Alicia's anger. "But traveling with me will likely attract unwanted attention. As a result, you'll lose both your reputation and your fortune amidst the rumors." Norman walked towards Alicia expectantly, while she simply stared at him blankly, unable to utter a word. Faced with her silence, Norman became even more eager to sell himself. He excitedly lifted his shirt, showing off his toned biceps. Alicia watched his actions, still speechless. Norman extended his hand in a gesture of invitation, a bright smile on his face. He gently pulled up the hood of his cloak, partially obscuring his handsome features. This face isn't very eye-catching when mixed in with a bunch of old men. Alicia stroked her chin and hummed softly. She turned to Norman and exclaimed, "Enough. I understand." But Alicia remained unconvinced. "Fine, let's say you're as capable as you claim." He immediately explained, "Oh, but I'm not boasting. I'm merely stating facts." "Your choice of words is quite exquisite, my lady." She stepped back slightly and suggested, "Try to see things from my perspective and listen to what you just said." Norman sounded a little disappointed. "Oh, am I still not persuasive enough?" She quickly denied it. "It's enough, but I'm curious. Why do you want to travel with me?" He frankly stated his point of view. "I am a knight of the Lathan Empire, obligated to protect God's people." Alicia immediately retorted, "If you want to fulfill your obligations, you can go to the slums like Mara." Norman tilted his head, reminding her, "Hey miss, you forget. I owe you my life now." Alicia remembered, "Oh, I helped you escape from that creep, but that's something anyone could." Before she could finish, he interrupted, "More than that, you saved my soul." Her eyes widened. "Me? What?" Norman took the opportunity to explain in more detail. "My body was indeed trapped in that stream." Recalling the feeling, he still shuddered, but my soul was constantly sinking deeper and deeper. A sense of suffocation enveloped Norman's soul, falling into the abyss. "The physical abyss?" Alicia asked skeptically. "The abyss." He placed his hand on his chest, emphasizing, "I owe you not only my life, but also my soul. Escorting you back to the Melfont estate and witnessing your return to your rightful place is my personal wish." Norman boldly declared his desire. Alicia was dumbfounded by his heartfelt confession. He extended his hand again. "So, please give me a chance to repay your kindness." She stared blankly at his hand. Finally, Alicia made her decision. "All right, perhaps I should give you a chance." The two held hands in silence. Norman flashed a bright smile and exclaimed, "My lady." Alicia studied him intently, coldly reminding him, "Put in writing first, a bodyguard contract." Norman was taken aback. "A contract?" Alicia frankly stated her position. "Yes, your perspective on the benefits of us traveling together is reasonable, but there are still risks, so a contract is necessary. This contract will prevent either party from harboring ill intentions, something a smile or a handshake cannot guarantee." She raised her index finger, indicating, "For the benefit of both of us. We must be cautious." Norman suddenly burst out laughing. Alicia immediately asked, "You disagree?" He reached up and wiped away the tears of laughter, then said, "Apologies, it's just the way you explained it." She criticized him directly. "I don't see what's so funny." Norman leaned in closer, complimenting her. "It's truly rare to meet someone so worldly." Unable to withstand the flattering praise, Alicia blushed involuntarily. She turned away shyly and suggested then, "I'll go draft the contract." Norman smiled and pointed to the door. "No, my lady, for the benefit of both of us, we must draft it together." He bowed his head respectfully. "Thank you for your hospitality. We shall certainly return when the time is right." The old couple stood at the door, seeing them off. "Take care," the old man said with a sigh, full of nostalgia. The old woman covered her mouth, chuckling, "You weren't this handsome in your younger days." As the sun began to set, they departed. This contract is between Party A, Alicia Melfont, and Party B, Normandius. He squeezed her fingers in a reminder. "Relax, Mississippi. We'll attract unwanted attention like this." Upon arrival at the Melfont estate, Party A shall compensate Party B for services rendered within the estate for 30 days, the amount to be calculated based on the number of working days. Norman read the clauses leisurely. "And we must hold hands like a loving couple, and Party A must hide if Party B deems it necessary." Alicia tilted Norman's face up, laughing. "I even have to cover your face." Indeed, Clause 3 clearly states, Party B must conceal their face and body when outside. As someone passed by, Norman quickly turned them around, holding her close. He sighed in relief. "Phew, good thing I agreed to this contract. For the honor of the Knights of Milan, Party B shall protect the life of Party A." Alicia pushed Norman away, embarrassed. "You're a bit too tense." That was just a passerby. As they walked through Thule Square on their way to Catham, she suddenly exclaimed, "Oh, I think we're here." The doorbell chimed. The shopkeeper looked at the earrings again for confirmation. "You wish to sell these?" He examined them carefully, humming softly, then began to calculate the price. 1 gold coin at most. Alicia slammed her hand on the table in anger. She indignantly made her point. The gems on these earrings were purchased by the Romdak Trading Company and polished by the most renowned craftsmen in the royal capital. Alicia pulled down the hood of her cloak and exclaimed, "And you're only offering 1 gold coin." The shopkeeper stammered in response, "Why you? You're affiliated with the Romdak Trading Company." Alicia warned him angrily, "If that's all you can offer, then I won't sell." She narrowed her eyes, reminding him without hesitation, "But remember, this will be the last transaction between us, as the Romdak Trading Company will no longer supply this shop." The shopkeeper was stunned into silence by her words. She pressed on, "What will happen then?" He rubbed his hands together, offering a fawning smile. "Well then, I'm willing to offer you a price higher than the market value." She lowered her gaze, seemingly in thought. Memories flooded Alicia's mind. "I became a merchant, learned the ways of the marketplace, all for the sake of the people's revival, and the Melfont family. The farmers had no choice but to return to the ruins of what they once called home." Just then, she suddenly heard someone call out, "Miss Alicia." The women there rushed forward to comfort her. "Oh dear, you must be exhausted." The desperate servants who had managed to escape. "All these lives weigh heavily on my shoulders." Alicia even had to face malicious gossip. They always whispered when she spoke. "Greetings, everyone. I come representing the Romdak Trading Company. I was once a fragile, powerless girl from a noble family, unable to do anything but sit quietly in a carriage and ride around the estate. A girl weathering the harsh realities of the world. Back then, Alicia had to face skepticism. "Ha ha, I've never heard of it. Really, is this wine drinkable? If you drink a whole bottle right here, we'll consider buying a few." Everyone watched her, snickering and whispering. "Romdak, what's that?" They gossiped openly in front of her. "I heard this trading company was newly established by a noble lady." How ridiculous. Alicia tilted her head and gulped down the wine. Her heart was filled with determination. "But I have no time to lament my fate, for poverty and famine are my enemies." She coughed from the drink, and a concerned voice reached her ears. "Are you all right, miss?" Alicia knelt on the ground, gasping for air, repeating, "I did it." The maid worriedly approached her side to comfort her. Miss Alicia wiped her mouth and announced the good news. They agreed to purchase our goods. At that time, she had only one thought: honor, dignity. Only by abandoning those things can I survive. The flashback ended. She simply stared at the money pouch in front of her. Norman lowered his voice, asking with concern, "You seem preoccupied. Is something wrong?" Alicia turned her gaze to the person opposite her, then said something that surprised the shopkeeper. "I hope the shopkeeper is a man of discretion." He spoke cautiously. Is there anything else I can help you with?" Alicia covered her mouth and made her request. "If rumors about me spread, I want you to fan the flames. She spoke calmly and firmly. Spread the word that Alicia Melfont is coming to Catham. Only Alicia's voice remained in the small pawn shop. Tell them the owner of the Romdak Trading Company has returned. Only after leaving the shop did she have a chance to relax. Phew, that was tiring. Just then, Norman announced another piece of bad news. We don't have enough money to rent a place to stay. Alicia nodded in understanding, then added, renting a place for the night is fine, but as the head of Romdak, I can't let my clandestine activities affect the trading company's reputation. Alicia decisively explained their travel plans. We'll have to camp out until we reach Catham. Once we're there, the company members will assist us. Moreover, her standards were quite high. I'd rather spend money on places that guarantee quality service than throw it away at establishments with shady reputations. Norman stroked his chin, revealing the information he knew. Commercial hubs like Catham attract all sorts of unsavory characters. He boldly reminded her, we should send word to your knights so they know when you'll arrive. Alicia sadly stated the truth. The Melfont family has no knights left to command. She didn't hesitate to reopen old wounds. 10 years ago, the knights' loyalty ended on that fateful night. Our knights were slaughtered. No one would pledge allegiance to a fallen noble family in a desolate territory. Norman could only offer a bland platitude. Alicia optimistically reassured him, it's all right. We can recover even without knights. He suddenly blurted out, as if in praise, that must be thanks to Romdak. She recalled the moment she declared, tell them the head of Romdak Trading Company has returned, and her cheeks flushed. She thought, how embarrassing. But Alicia tried to maintain her composure. Ahem, yes, the trading company is the Melfont family's prosperity now. As the food arrived, Norman asked curiously, how did you get into trading? She murmured, with lotuses. He repeated in surprise, lotuses. Alicia began to share her story of acquiring wealth. Disease swept through our lands, destroying crops and the livelihoods of artisans. Just when I thought there was no other way, something caught my eye. Back then, she had happened to see lotuses on the lake. Alicia keenly realized their value. The lotus leaves could be used to make fragrant tea, and the stems could be used as fuel. But it also caused her a great deal of stress. However, retailing tea and fuel wasn't enough to revive the family. Driven by that pressure, Alicia made a bolder decision. So we found a way to generate more profit from the lotuses. Lotus liquor, a special drink only the Melfont family can brew. And just like that, we became the first noble family in history to establish a trading company. Alicia shared with a proud tone. Through active trading, we built a foundation beyond imagination. Next, she smoothly took the next step. Then we reinvested the funds into other areas to earn more profit. Land, property, jewels. Alicia's influence continued to grow. And swords and ships to protect our people and merchant vessels. Resting her chin on her hand and swirling her glass, she sighed. In everyone's eyes, I'm a cold-hearted, profit-obsessed witch. At every banquet I attend, people whisper about me behind my back. You could say I traded respect and reputation for money. Norman clenched his fist, silently assessing. I see. So that's why she's so worldly at such a young age, and so sensitive when rumors are mentioned. But outwardly, he maintained his smile. In my opinion, pursuing profit to ensure the well-being of your people is far more respectable than clinging to aristocratic honor while doing nothing for those who suffer. Hearing these words, Alicia couldn't help but smile. She took a sip of water and softly said, I stopped caring about honor and dignity a long time ago. Just then, a complaining voice reached her ears. Humph, that damned sorceress. Whispers continued to surround Alicia. Isn't that the head of the trading company? The bitch who got taken out at the celebration. Oh, looks like she's still kicking. What's she doing here? A drunkard spoke boldly. I recognized those purple eyes right away. She's using the trading company to control Catham. What a nuisance. They grew increasingly brazen. Aren't nobles supposed to stay in their mansions reading books and drinking tea? She's just bored, so she's here to get in our way. Alicia continued eating casually, inwardly admitting, well, they're not wrong. She calmly held her knife and fork, her heart hardened. I've long been prepared to face these insults. To other merchants, I'm a thorn in their side. To the nobles, I'm lowborn. Alicia knew she was just a wine-selling noble, not close to anyone. Another person sneered. Whoever she is, the goddess is displeased with her. They continued whispering at their table. Yeah, I've heard about the Melfont family. I bet countless souls haunt her. But there was one important thing she'd overlooked. A phrase suddenly echoed in Alicia's memory. That bitch should have died with her family that day. Norman's heart suddenly raced. He exuded a "don't mess with me" aura, like a sleeping prince awakened in the forest. Alicia calmly reminded him, "Ignore them. I'm used to being gossiped about." "And no problem." Norman stammered in denial. "Not at all." A suspicious voice reached his ears. Mr. Norman suddenly yelled, "That's not true at all." He rushed toward the group, shouting it wasn't like that. A loud crash echoed through the restaurant as Norman swiftly threw a punch. His fist connected with the face of the man who had been talking the most, the sounds of impact and a heavy thud mixing together. Alicia raised an eyebrow, criticizing him internally. He can't even fight properly. These people were just bluffing. She rubbed her forehead, cursing inwardly, but he's fighting in a bar again. Ugh, damn it, we're gonna get into trouble. Alicia stood up decisively. "Enough," she warned Norman loudly. "You'll kill him if you keep this up." "I told you I'm fine," he retorted, not turning around. "But you're not like that." The pointed question made Alicia freeze. Norman looked up, stating firmly, "You're not fine at all." Alicia stubbornly tugged at his hand. "Let's go. Leave this place." But Norman was like a bull. "Only then will this scum learn to shut up." She whispered in his ear, "Don't make this a bigger deal, you idiot." Norman looked at her blankly, just as a group of muscular men rushed over, yelling, You dare hit my brother." Alicia suddenly grabbed Norman's hand, his eyes widening at the unexpected touch. Her brow furrowed as she commanded, "Come with me, or I'll leave you here." The group shouted after them. They're running. After them. After they had run a considerable distance, Norman spoke up, "My lady, you're out of breath." He looked at the panting Alicia, asking with concern, "Are you sure you're all right?" She was exasperated. "I told you I'm fine. Why is he so overly concerned? This violates the contract." Alicia frowned, making a painful decision. "I'm going to deduct this from his salary." But the more she thought about it, the angrier she became. This won't even cover the damages he caused. Furthermore, she heard Norman nagging in her ear, "Please, my lady, slow down. You'll get sick again." Alicia yanked her hand back, exclaiming, "I've had enough of your excessive concern." Without waiting for his reaction, she blurted out, "See, I told you. Are you going to attack me now?" Norman raised his hands in a gesture of innocence. "Of course not. Why would I do that?" Alicia immediately retorted sarcastically, "Yes, the noble descendant of the Diaz family has made it clear they can't stand all the vulgar language. So what's stopping you from punching me in the face?" He had to take all the blame. "If my behavior in the bar made you uncomfortable, I apologize." Norman tried to justify his actions, but as a knight, I couldn't let those men be so insolent. Alicia still snapped irritably, "So what?" She tightened her grip on her skirt, emphasizing those lowlifes weren't wrong. She lowered her head, slandering herself. Alicia Melfont is a disgrace to the nobility, a tavern wench who sells her dignity for money. The wind around them suddenly picked up. Norman sadly confessed, "I can't agree with the horrible things they said about you." He placed his hand on his chest, trying to explain, "Just like I refuse to believe the dark words the curse whispers in my ear." His words stunned Alicia. Norman continued to pour out his heart. "Every moment I was in that water, it was filled with voices urging me to die." He used his own experience to explain, "I thought it would be fine if I just ignored them, but it wasn't." So when Norman heard those vulgar words, "That bitch should have died with her family that day," his eyes widened. Hearing those insults and lewd laughter day after day, haha, he too had experienced the feeling of being mocked and ridiculed. "If it weren't for you, everything would be perfect." Norman, die. All of this gradually made me believe it would be better to be dead. Soon after, it wasn't a voice anymore, but me wanting to kill myself. In Alicia's mind, she automatically repeated myself. Norman continued calmly, "My lady is a very strong person, unlike me." He looked at his hands, adding, "But no matter how strong you are." Norman clenched his fists, stating firmly, "The wounds caused by other people's words don't just disappear." Norman looked directly into Alicia's eyes, emphasizing solemnly, "Don't let them do that to you." She turned around, bewildered, leaving behind a single word, "Okay." Alicia rubbed her shoulders, making a promise. "I won't belittle myself anymore, and you should learn to control your temper." Norman gazed at her back. Alicia turned her head and asked again, "Promise?" He responded gently, "I promise." She crossed her arms, returning to the matter at hand. All right, since those thugs are probably after us, I think we should go through the forest until we reach Catham. And in her mind, she continued to curse. Damn it, we have to camp out again. Norman couldn't read her mind, so he continued to smile serenely. He looked up with elation, praising the star-filled night sky. Alicia shivered, rubbing her arms. Norman considerately draped his cloak over her shoulders. He offered hope without hesitation. This way, you'll soon be able to peacefully admire the night sky at your estate again. The bright moonlight and rustling leaves seemed to echo his words. The early morning sky was clear, the air cool and soft, and birdsong drifted from the canopy. Norman slept in the shade of the green leaves, his face serene, his eyes closed. In his sleep, he blinked slightly, his eyes fluttering open hazily, and a dark figure suddenly appeared before him. Norman sat up abruptly, his limbs stiff with apprehension. When he recognized the figure as Alicia, he exclaimed in surprise, "Lady Alicia." Alicia complimented him. "Nothing escaped your vigilance, huh?" Norman smiled brightly, replying, "A knight must always be ready to fight his enemies." Alicia crossed her arms and chuckled with a hint of skepticism. "Always vigilant." She then teased him, "But you were sleeping like a log, even snoring." Norman was startled and said in a fluster, "Oh dear." Alicia giggled, covering her mouth. "I was just joking." Norman glanced at the luggage Alicia had brought, seeing it neatly and thoughtfully prepared. Norman praised her. "It seems you're even better prepared for this journey than I am." A very smug expression appeared on Lady Alicia's face. "Oh, you flatter me." Norman slowly stood up, a bewildered expression on his face at Alicia's words. "Anyway," Alicia said with a smile and a dependable tone, "our shoes won't be wearing out anymore." The flag with the Syria flower fluttered in the wind. Suddenly, a large merchant caravan from the Ramdeck Trading Company appeared. The caravan began to move, the sound of hooves echoing steadily and rhythmically in the quiet space, and the caravan slowly continued forward. Norman placed his hand on the green, leaves swaying in front of him, gently pushing aside the branches that blocked his view, and said with a smile, "It's the Ramdeck insignia." Norman and Alicia huddled beside the roadside bushes. Norman's face beamed with joy as he said, "I never thought we'd run into the Merchant Guild so soon. The heavens are on our side." Alicia's sorrowful voice rang out. "The heavens don't help anyone, Mr. Norman. Not even me." She stated her point frankly. "I would refuse help regardless." Sadness flickered in Alicia's eyes, and her expression hardened as she said, "The only one who can help me is myself." Alicia and Norman quickly rushed onto the road, blocking the caravan's path. Alicia shouted, "Stan, stop the carriage." Alicia yelled, "I know you can hear me." A grumpy guard shouted, "My lady, you are blocking the path of Master Stan, the acting head of Ramdeck." Stan waved a hand to signal the guards, saying wait. The carriage door slowly opened. Alicia and Norman stared intently at the carriage, full of anticipation. Stan, the acting head of the Ramdeck Trading Company, emerged with a heroic air. She walked over and stood before Alicia and Norman, the atmosphere becoming very tense and oppressive. Stan glared at them, her brow furrowed, looking very uncomfortable. Alicia narrowed her eyes, filled with determination, not wavering in the slightest. Stan suddenly ran, quickly rushing forward. She suddenly embraced Alicia tightly. Norman's eyes widened in surprise, his mouth agape. The caravan also slowly came to a halt, the sound of rolling wheels gradually subsiding. Stan sobbed and cried, while lamenting, "I thought I really lost you this time." Ooh. Alicia thought uncomfortably, "Can't you see I'm standing right here?" Stan continued to hold Alicia tightly, constantly crying and whimpering, "Oh, my poor Miss Alicia, you haven't been eating properly again, have you? You're all skin and bones now." Alicia thought, "I've been eating too much, I'm all bread now." Norman smiled as he watched Stan's concern and worry for Alicia, secretly pleased. It seems she's a good person. Suddenly, a bright light flashed. Stan asked curiously, "What's so shiny?" The light turned out to be from Norman's aura, from his platinum blonde hair to his flawless facial features. Stan gazed at his strong physique and firm hands, all of which combined into a perfect, shimmering, and captivating man. Stan's cheeks flushed, and she whispered in Alicia's ear, "I gotta say, miss, ditch that Philip Moorfuck and get with this guy. Alicia exclaimed in horror. Stan, please, it's more pork. After hearing Stan's words, Alicia suddenly came back to her senses and fell into deep thought. She pondered intently over what Stan had just said. Alicia thought, I don't need a knight anymore. I have Stan and the Ramdeck guards. Stan smiled and praised. Good, very good. He has all the qualities a man should have. Alicia still hesitated, thinking, being with him will only cause more trouble. Having made up her mind, Alicia called out Mr. Norman. She extended her hand and said straightforwardly, we will prepare a horse or horses to ensure your safe return to your family. Norman looked bewildered, as if he hadn't understood what was happening. Miss Alicia's tone was firm and decisive. It seems now is the appropriate time to terminate the contract. Norman remained silent, and Stan glanced awkwardly at Alicia. Norman's face fell. He thought dejectedly, I won't accept this, good heavens. He looked at Alicia with pleading eyes. Although her heart ached, Alicia firmly refused. You can't look at me with those puppy dog eyes. Alicia continued coldly. Your wages will be paid according to every clause of the contract, but one day's wages will be deducted for brawling in the tavern. The horse and carriage will be provided free of charge. Norman sat motionless, and when he heard Alicia suggest, let's say our goodbyes at the end of the road, he clenched his hands tightly. Looking at Norman's sad and pitiful face, Alicia thought sadly, I wish I could just ignore him. Norman, clenching his palm, said, Miss, I'm scared. A flicker of surprise crossed Alicia's eyes, and Stan also looked at him in astonishment. Norman softly expressed his feelings. The world has changed so much in the past 10 years. I've become a stranger. Norman's eyes reddened, as if he were about to cry. He choked back a sob and asked her, Can I find my way home alone? Stan said tearfully, full of sympathy, Oh, how pitiful. Seeing Stan's reaction, Alicia suddenly froze. You decided from the moment you saw him, didn't you? Stan took Norman's hand and patted it gently. Don't worry, you can come with us. Alicia immediately objected. Stan, thank you. Norman smiled gently, as if he had found hope. He asked cautiously, Is that all right, Miss Alicia? Seeing the gleaming, hopeful eyes of Norman and Stan, Alicia thought worriedly. There's no way I can flatly refuse without embarrassing myself here. Alicia rubbed her head in frustration and sighed. Fine, but you can't come with us to the Melfont estate, understand? A blissful smile immediately spread across Norman's face again. Understood. Mississippi Alicia glanced at Norman with a firm yet resigned look. She reminded him again, Remember, Mr. Norman, we will part ways in Catham. The sun gradually set, casting its afterglow on the Melfont estate. A servant immediately reported to Erica, We've found Mississippi. She's at the end of the road with Madam Stan, about to set off. Erica calmly replied, Good. Erica immediately corrected the servant. It's not that we found her, it's that she found us. That's how Miss does things. The servant suggested, Perhaps we should escort her back here, to this safer place. Erica immediately objected. There's no need for such fuss. Miss Alicia doesn't have the patience to waste time. Resting her chin on her hand, she slowly pondered, It's best to leave it to Madam Stan. She's very reliable and capable, and Miss knows Catham like the back of her hand. Suddenly, Erica's office door slammed open with a loud bang. Gino burst in abruptly, asking, So where's Alicia now? Erica frowned and said impatiently, I said, no one is allowed to. Gino, the representative of the Ramdeck Trading Company, smiled mischievously. You should have notified me when you found her. Gino slowly approached Erica. Erica asked curiously, Why would you think I would do that? Erica's expression was very serious. And I must remind you that you should address Miss with utmost respect. She is your master, not your friend. Gino glared at Erica angrily. The only one qualified to judge is Alicia, not you. Gino leaned closer to Erica, smiling slyly. Your whispering behind closed doors made me want to check if my boss is all right. After all, only she can release me from this slave contract. Erica slammed her hand on the table in anger. She snapped, You say slave contract. That is a legitimate labor contract. Gino quickly interrupted Erica. I'm not here to argue with you, Erica. Erica reminded him without hesitation. Then please leave and don't do anything reckless. Miss is the owner of the Ramdeck Trading Company, and she will return with the Ramdeck Trading Company. Hearing this, Gino immediately turned to leave. Before he left, he declared loudly, I don't think so, because I will be the one to bring her back. Gino quickly walked outside, slamming the door with a bang. The servant, looking at Gino, said worriedly, "Oh dear, this is going to be a mess." Erica's eyes sharpened. "Then what are you waiting for?" She hurriedly ordered, "Hurry up and warn them before that crazy ape gets into town." In the evening, at the inn in Catham, Alicia's voice rang out, full of comfort and contentment. She leaned back against the soft mattress with a bright smile. "This is the life." She looked around the room and said with satisfaction, empty-handed on the way home, but a dry bed and a solid ceiling are still far more luxurious than sleeping in the forest. Her expression suddenly softened, becoming gentle and kind. Looking back, she remembered Norman's previous efforts and consideration and felt grateful. Alicia moved her hands and feet, thinking, Mr. Norman has tried his best to take care of me throughout the journey. Wait, why should I feel bad? He's just working for his pay. Lying on her side, she thought seriously, but now that I'm in Catham, I have to think about the next step. I can't just send him away like this. There must be a gentler way. Her eyes widened as if she suddenly remembered something. She sat up abruptly, clenching her hands with firm resolve. Right, the contract. Add a clause, clearly stating the expiration date. With a plan in mind, Alicia immediately went to Norman's room to see him. She lingered in front of his door for a long time, her heart filled with many concerns. She mustered her courage and knocked, telling herself, this has to be done. It must end cleanly. The door slowly opened, the light from the room illuminating her face. Norman's soft hair swayed in the breeze, gently brushing past. Norman, dressed in neat and formal attire, his cheeks flushed, called out to her, "Miss Alicia." Alicia's gaze seemed captivated by his handsomeness. Norman kept calling her, "Miss Alicia." He radiated a dazzling aura, making Alicia stare at him, transfixed. Stan's voice came from inside the room. "I can't wait to see how beautiful you look in these clothes. Don't worry, we'll get you some clothes. We'll raid all the shops in Catham if we have to." Alicia walked in and asked what's going on. Stan said happily, just in time. Stan pointed at Norman and praised. "He looks good in anything." The guard agreed with both hands. "He's definitely an angel sent by God." Norman sobbed, looking at Alicia with pleading eyes. "Miss Alicia, save me." Alicia helplessly held her head and sighed. "Stan, don't be fooled by his appearance. This man used to be the commander of a night patrol. He's not someone you can just dress up." Norman wondered inwardly, is there something wrong with my appearance? Stan vehemently defended her point. With those looks, he can get anything he wants, even though he's been isolated for 10 years. A fervent passion flickered in her eyes. It's only fair to let him experience what he's missed all these years. Alicia said casually, "You must have a lot of free time." Stan replied cheerfully, "Oh ho ho, of course." Stan said innocently, "We haven't had time to rest for a long time, and you're back." Alicia frowned, thinking calmly. At a time like this, someone needs to make it clear who's in charge. Alicia suddenly took Norman's arm and pulled him aside, saying, "On behalf of the Chamber of Commerce, I have an important contract to discuss with Mr. Norman." She instructed with a serious expression, "And I expect not to be disturbed." Alicia continued, carefully reminding her, "Not even by you, Stan." Hearing this, Stan immediately lowered her head obediently. "Of course, Mississippi. If you need any help, just let me know." After that, she quickly rushed out of the room. Immediately, Norman said with a smile, "That was a quick battle." Miss Alicia crossed her arms and said seriously, "Well, I didn't lie to her." She turned to him and explained, "You and I need to discuss a contract." Norman's expression was shocked, but he also looked at her with great concern. Alicia quickly got down to business, sitting down and starting to draft the contract. As she wrote, she explained the terms of the contract to Norman. "Let me see. During the journey to your family estate, you will be provided with transportation, cash, and food." Norman froze when he heard her mention the last clause, "You will leave in a week." "I've added some clauses to the contract." Alicia glanced at him, seeking Norman's opinion. "Would you like to see the revised parts?" She was surprised to find Norman intently looking at the scenery outside the window. "Mr. Norman." He looked at the bustling city below and said with a yearning tone, "The people out there look so happy." Hearing this, Alicia stopped writing and stood up. She walked over and stood beside him, looking at the scene below. People were happily strolling under the warm streetlights, as if it were a festival. Alicia thought in surprise, "The streets are so lively this late." She immediately told Norman, "They are celebrating the founding of the Empire. It will last for a month, and people will be playing until late at night." Norman gently touched the window and responded softly. "I see," he whispered, his eyes sparkling with excitement. "They look really happy." Alicia watched him quietly, thinking, it's just an ordinary festival anyway. Does he find it familiar, or is he simply reminiscing about the world after 10 years of confinement? Alicia readily offered, "If you want to go, our guard can take you around." Norman asked in surprise, "Really?" Alicia agreed and carefully instructed him, "Yes, but you must cover your face. The news that you're still alive has only just been sent to your family. It's my responsibility to ensure you return safely." Norman replied excitedly, "Of course, I won't cause any trouble." His voice suddenly quieted. "Oh," he asked her sadly, "aren't you coming with me?" Alicia looked away, forcing a smile. "Probably not. I have mountains of work waiting for me. Ha." Norman then spoke in a particularly serious tone. "I have no choice but to remind you." He leaned closer to her face and continued about the terms of the contract. On the street, the cheers and laughter of the people were lively and bustling. Alicia walked onto the street, listlessly with Norman, as if forced. She thought resentfully, "This is so unfair." Earlier in the room, Norman reiterated the contents of the contract. "The contract is valid for another week, even if you added clauses." Norman extended his hand. "Since I am a knight, during the contract period, my duty is to stay by your side." He clenched his fist and placed it on his chest, whispering, "I cannot move freely without your company." Miss Alicia cried silently in her heart. "He manipulated me into coming along." Norman suddenly took out a hairpin inlaid with a purple gem, matching Alicia's eye color. He held it up to her face, admiring it. "Purple suits you very well," he complimented. A mysterious dark figure suddenly appeared on the rooftop, secretly observing Norman and Alicia's movements. It was Nyx's minion. He muttered, "My lord, my savior." He exuded a strange and gloomy aura. Glaring angrily, he said, "I have come to subdue this tainted soul and fulfill your wishes." Then the minion suddenly vanished, his voice still echoing in the wind. "The path of the dark god Arpho will guide your souls into the deepest hell." In an instant, he appeared right behind Norman and Alicia. A stranger suddenly rushed past. Norman instinctively pulled Alicia back, holding her tightly. Norman looked around, worried. There are too many people. He extended his hand to Alicia, cheerfully suggesting, "Hold my hand." Miss Alicia immediately refused. "I don't like being overprotected." From then on, the minion secretly watched Norman and Alicia from behind. A dangerous blue light flashed in his eyes. He said resentfully, "Come here, Alicia Melfont." A blue flame suddenly appeared in his hand. He continued to curse Alicia, "Go to the deepest hell." Just as the minion was about to attack, a hand suddenly reached out in front of him. Gino's tall figure pressed close behind the minion. He covered his mouth, threatening, "Shut up, or I'll slit your throat." Meanwhile, Norman and Alicia continued walking leisurely forward, unaware of what had happened. Gino tied up the minion in a dark alley and interrogated him. "Who is that bastard?" Gino slammed his fist into the minion's head. He shouted angrily, "Because of this old geezer, I lost track of them." Gino glared at him, gnashing his teeth in fury. Damn it, a few hours earlier, Gino had a conversation with Ophelia. He asked suspiciously, "What are you doing here?" Ophelia didn't answer, but firmly reminded him, "If you want Alicia to return to the manor safely, do as I say." Gino grabbed Ophelia's arm and roared angrily, "Who do you think you're talking to? You're a wanted fugitive. Give me one reason why I shouldn't throw you in jail." Ophelia's expression was unusually firm. "That's not a suggestion, it's a warning," she said. Ophelia stepped closer to him. "If anything happens to Alicia because of your interference," she leaned close to Gino's face and declared resolutely, "I will kill you myself." Recalling Ophelia's previous warning, Gino furiously grabbed the minion's clothes, lifted him up, and began to interrogate him. "If you want me to let you go, answer my questions quickly." Gino asked bluntly, "Did Nyx send you? How many of your accomplices are here to kill Alicia?" Gino sneered triumphantly. "I see." He slammed the minion to the ground. Gino smiled sinisterly, drawing his sword. "I wasn't planning on letting you go anyway." The sharp sound of a blade slicing through the air rang out, followed by a splatter of blood. A slender hand was plucking the petals of a teresia flower. The petals fluttered in the breeze. Norman said in surprise, "Oh." Alicia explained to him Teresia flowers. Some fortune tellers use them for divination. The person picking the petals was a child fortune teller. Norman looked at her with a puzzled expression. "It's the first time I've seen that kind of flower." Next to the child fortune teller was a basket full of Teresia flowers. Alicia continued to explain, "They're wildflowers not commonly seen in gardens." Alicia's tone became very excited and interested. "Their unique colors and shapes are very attractive." Alicia went on to tell Norman about their short lifespan. "But if you pick them and put them in a vase, they'll wither in less than a day." Norman turned to look at her. "You seem to know a lot about this flower." Alicia's eyes suddenly drooped, as if filled with unspoken emotions. With a sorrowful expression, Alicia shared, "These used to be my favorite flowers." Whenever she saw Teresia flowers, childhood memories would flood back. Ophelia loved Teresia flowers. She recalled a beautiful morning. "We were once in a field full of beautiful flowers, smiling happily." Alicia remembered the moment Ophelia placed a Teresia flower in her hair. "She was the purest person I'd ever met." Back then, Ophelia smiled and told her, "Teresia is my favorite flower. It reminds me of you, Alicia." Her heart grew heavy with the negative thoughts that filled her mind. Even now, people always gossiped about Ophelia behind her back. They said Ophelia brought Nyx, a pure saint and a fallen priest. It was unbelievable. They must be in cahoots. Even so, Alicia always remembered Ophelia. "However, it doesn't matter what I think of her. The shadow of suspicion will always follow her wherever she goes." Around that time, Erica reported to Alicia, "The Emperor has ordered Lady Ophelia's detainment." Alicia remained hesitant and distraught. "What should I do?" Erica offered her opinion. "Since you are the victim, you have the right. The Emperor will accept it." Alicia looked at the vase on the table, remembering what Ophelia had once sincerely said to her. "You're amazing, Alicia. How can flowers stay so fresh in a vase?" Her eyes filled with sadness, Ophelia's voice still echoing in her ears. "Oh, but don't tell me how." She clenched her fists, regretting the past. "Keeping the secret means you'll always stay by my side to admire them." Alicia immediately stood up and made her decision. "Put a bounty on Ophelia. She will be imprisoned immediately." She thought with a heavy heart. "As a citizen of the Empire and the head of the Melfont family, no matter how cruel, I still have to fulfill my duties." Despite the worry in her heart, she resolutely issued the punishment for Ophelia and sent her to Melfont prison. The moment she saw the Teresia flowers, Alicia was suddenly reminded of precious memories from the past. That's how her good times ended. In Alicia's eyes, Ophelia's image was always associated with Teresia flowers, with a bright smile, always speaking gentle words. "Perhaps you are the one chosen by the queen. Even such delicate flowers can thrive in your loving hands." The falling Teresia petals brought Alicia back to reality. She stood silently on the crowded street, her face grim as she muttered, "Nonsense." Norman asked curiously what. She pointed at the child fortune teller and suggested, "Nothing. How about we get our fortunes told?" Norman's face lit up with excitement. "Can we?" Alicia replied gently, "Of course." So the two walked towards the child fortune teller. Norman greeted, "Hello." He held a Teresia flower in his hand and softly asked, "Can you tell my fortune?" Although only his eyes were visible, his face still radiated a shimmering warmth. The child fortune teller looked at Norman with gentle and kind eyes. She suddenly reached out to Norman, and Alicia's face was stunned. "Oh," she cried out in alarm, "be careful." The child fortune teller grabbed Norman's hooded cloak and swiftly pulled down the hood, revealing his platinum blonde hair fluttering in the wind. Passers-by were astonished by this scene. "Oh, silver hair." The crowd quickly gathered, whispering amongst themselves, could it be the Diaz family's missing eldest son? Alicia's face contorted with anger. "Damn it." She quickly grabbed Norman's hand and pulled him away. The two ran as fast as they could to avoid attention, Alicia anxiously shouting, "Run." The passers-by gossiped, "Silver hair and golden eyes, it must be Normandius. Why is he in the city? I heard he went missing years ago." Hearing these words, Gino muttered to himself, "Stop fussing over that guy." He looked around, thinking it would be faster if I got those guys from Ramdeck to look for Alicia. Just then, the passers-by's whispers inadvertently reached Gino's ears. Who was Mr. Norman with? A lady with purple eyes. Gino's face was filled with shock and worry. Purple eyes. A fallen Teresia flower suddenly caught his eye. He smiled slightly, immediately realizing she was just here. Alicia, Gino approached and placed his hand on the shoulder of the person who had just witnessed the situation. He asked gently, "Could you please repeat that? I really need to know which direction that lady went." Meanwhile, Alicia and Norman temporarily hid in an empty space. Norman suddenly realized that Alicia had been holding his hand tightly throughout their escape. He remembered her cold words earlier when she refused to hold hands. "I don't like being overly cared for." His cheeks immediately flushed. Alicia glanced at Norman with an annoyed and uncomfortable look. Norman sadly lowered his head and hesitantly said, "I'm really very sorry." Seeing Alicia suddenly burst into laughter, Norman softly continued, saying that such a thing wouldn't happen again. Noticing the tightly clutched Tecilia flowers in Norman's hand, Alicia said in surprise, "I didn't think you'd bring the flowers too." Norman looked bewildered, as if he'd been unconsciously holding the bouquet without realizing it. "Oh." Alicia suddenly laughed until tears welled up. "How's that little girl going to make a living without her flowers? There will be rumors again. A poor fortune teller robbed of her tools by Mr. Norman." She reached up to wipe her tears, thinking, "Oh, I'm laughing too hard." Seeing Norman's pitiful and guilty expression, Alicia encouraged and comforted him. "Oh, don't take it seriously. I was just joking. I'm sure she'll be compensated." Norman slowly reached out to Alicia. He gently touched her shoulder, dejectedly saying, "I hope I didn't upset you." Alicia calmly replied, "People were gossiping, but what's done is done, and I needed the exercise. I haven't run like that in a long time." She openly shared her childhood with Norman. "I used to be a sickly girl, cooped up indoors all day, so a friend begged my parents to allow her to take me out to pick flowers." Her tone suddenly dropped, becoming slightly choked. "We used to play happily on the hillsides, enjoying every breeze. It sounds ironic now, doesn't it? My health is much better, but I can no longer run as freely as I did back then." Her words were filled with lingering emotion and regret. After all, a young lady must maintain her composure. Norman smiled gently, looking at her with a tender, loving gaze. Looking at the bustling street outside, Norman said wistfully, "I should have been more careful. If we hadn't been spotted, we could have run a few more laps. We haven't even explored the whole festival yet." Alicia thought to herself, "Yeah, we had to run away before we could visit the other stalls." Pointing at Norman's forehead, Alicia said, "Try frowning. Right here, furrow your brows." Norman awkwardly furrowed his brows. Alicia said, "That's right. Sometimes you just need that expression to keep people away from you." Imagining Norman looking haughty and unapproachable, she suggested, "Why don't you try spitting on the street as you walk?" She laughed, seemingly pleased with her own idea. No one would expect the Dias heir to behave so crudely. Hearing this, Norman seemed unable to contain his laughter any longer. He burst out laughing. Alicia reminded him, "Don't laugh, I'm serious." Norman looked at her and softly said, "I know, Mississippi." His expression made Alicia think, now what? He stared intently at his palms, confessing, "I keep forgetting that I was imprisoned in that water for 10 years. He sincerely shared his innermost thoughts with her. At first, I was surprised that I could so easily put aside those painful memories. He slowly moved closer to her, saying, "But now I know why." He gently placed his hand on her cheek, looking at her with adoration, and whispered, "It's because you're by my side." Alicia held a flower crown in her hand, while Norman, wearing a cloak that covered his mouth and nose, walked beside her. Her face flushed with shyness. She had 1,000 words to say, but couldn't utter them, only stealing glances at Norman. Stealing glances. The flower crown felt as if it were enchanted, making Alicia flustered. Clutching the crown tightly, she thought, "This flower crown is making me so nervous." Looking at Norman's smiling eyes, the only part of his face visible, Alicia immediately attributed the cause to the flower crown she was holding. "It's definitely because of this flower crown." She recalled the moment Norman caressed her face, saying in a loving voice, "It's because you're by my side." Suddenly, a purple petal gently landed on Norman's nose. Landed. Looking at his bewildered face, Alicia couldn't help but burst into laughter. Then, when she looked back, her eyes widened in surprise. Norman held the bouquet in one hand and was swiftly weaving the stems into a circle with the other. Happiness radiated from his face. Alicia hesitantly called out to him, Mr. Norman. After finishing weaving, he twisted the knot again to secure it firmly. Twisted. Norman handed the flower crown to Alicia, hesitantly saying, "This crown might be completely different from the one your friend used to make." But Alicia, holding the Tessilia flower crown, gazed at it. After a moment, she interrupted him, her cheeks quickly flushing. "It's beautiful. Tessilia flowers never disappoint." Just then, the sky suddenly lit up with a series of fireworks, the sounds of explosions echoing. Bang, bang. Norman reached out to catch the falling sparks, his eyes filled with longing. He looked up at the sky, unconsciously saying to Alicia, "I wish we could see them closer." Sparks fell around them, reflecting light and glittering. Alicia also looked up at the sky, calmly saying, "This is just to advertise tomorrow's festival. They're saving the best for the main event." The fireworks continued to bloom. Norman looked up, his gaze fixed on the dazzling display in the sky. Alicia scratched her neck and sighed inwardly. "Ugh, I wish I could just ignore him." After a moment, she said to Norman, if you like watching fireworks," she suggested, "you should probably disguise yourself." Surprise flickered across Norman's face at her words, quickly replaced by a bright smile. His face beaming, he twirled a strand of hair between his fingers. "I'll need a bigger hat and a matching cloak. Something to hide my eyes and hair." Alicia pictured him in such an outfit, waving and calling her miss, and found the image rather unappealing. "Wouldn't it be difficult to walk around like that?" she asked, voicing her concerns. Norman replied swiftly, as if it were the most obvious thing in the world. "You can guide me. I'll hold onto your sleeve." Alicia stammered, surprised, SL sleeve. But Norman's bright smile betrayed no hint of ulterior motives. He beamed at her, extending a hand. "Trust me, this plan is brilliant, but I can't do it alone. You have to be by my side tomorrow." He held out his hand, fingers wiggling in a gesture for a pinky promise. His hand shimmered. Alicia's face flushed crimson, but in the end, she relented and linked her pinky with his. "I suppose, fine." She gave a self-deprecating laugh. "Huh." Alicia clutched her head dramatically. First Ophelia, and now Mr. Norman, these devastatingly handsome men. After a moment of internal struggle, she admitted defeat. "Ugh, I can't deny it anymore. I must have a weakness for beautiful faces." Just as Alicia was feeling overwhelmed, two boys chased each other past them, their shouts echoing through the area. "Wait up!" One boy, caught up in the game, tripped and fell with a thud. Alicia gasped and rushed to the boy's side. "Are you all right?" The child pushed himself up, crying. Alicia extended a hand. "Can you stand?" she asked, her voice full of concern. Norman's heart lurched at the sight. The boy looked up, a small scratch on his face and tears in his eyes, but he quickly managed a polite, "Thank you." The boy's appearance reminded him of Nicholas when he was younger, the moment he'd screamed, struggling, "No, let me go." Norman's breath hitched, the memory flooding back. At the same time, the boy's friend chimed in, "He's okay, it's just a scrape." The boy glanced at his friend, then quickly thanked Alicia again. "Thank you for helping us, Mississippi." The other boy added with a cheerful grin, "Yeah, I'm still in one piece." The two boys waved as they ran off, and Alicia called after them, "Don't stay out too late." Waving back, she murmured, "Kids these days are so resilient." Turning back, she noticed Norman's strange demeanor. He was hunched over, clutching his chest, his breathing labored. He trembled, struggling to breathe. Seeing him about to collapse, Alicia rushed to his side. "Are you all right?" she asked urgently. Only Norman's ragged breathing and the tightening grip on his chest answered her. Then he slumped forward and Alicia caught him, crying out in alarm, "Mr. Norman." Norman leaned heavily against her, unable to stand. He mumbled, his speech and breath coming in ragged gasps. "I'm sorry, miss." After a moment, he seemed to regain some composure. "That boy, he reminded me of Nicholas," he said slowly. I saw blame and anger in his face. Alicia looked at him cautiously. "Norman, are you saying your brother blames you for what happened?" she asked tentatively. Norman straightened slowly, pulling away from her support. His back radiated loneliness, his voice filled with regret. "I'm not sure my family would welcome me back. I don't think I can face Nicholas." Alicia didn't contradict him. "Your family will be happy to see you safe," she offered. Norman shook his head. "No, The light had gone out of his eyes, replaced by a sorrowful frown. I ruined my brother. What happened must have scarred his sensitive heart. Alicia blinked at the word sensitive, wondering if she'd heard correctly. He didn't meet her gaze, looking off into the distance as he recounted the past. He was taken hostage, you know. He recalled being sealed by Iago's magic, Nicholas witnessing it all. Can you imagine the trauma he suffered when Iago cursed me that day? Guilt laced Norman's voice. My disappearance forced him to take on the responsibilities of the eldest son. He clenched his fists tightly when he was little, then sadly asserted that he didn't want to see me again. Clench his fists. After hearing everything, Alicia stood there silently for a long time. Watching his flickering gaze and self-blaming words, she felt sorry for Norman's situation, the guilt twisted by his perception of everything. Recalling Nicholas's personality, she was absolutely certain he wouldn't distance himself from his brother. Nicholas was indeed very arrogant and conceited, but he wasn't the kind of fool who would avoid his brother just because he was a victim. She was convinced of her thoughts, and I'm sure that's how it was. All of the above is written in the novel Ophelia's Night, because everything is written in that damn novel. Alicia reviewed the contents of the novel in her mind. When Iago cursed Norman's shattered soul, the moment he cried out the name of his cursed brother, Norman, Nicholas awakened the divine power within him. Iago tightly hugged Nicholas, shielding him from the dazzling light emanating from his brother. No, almost. Seeing the curse gradually forming on Norman, he became even more excited. I'm almost there. Just as his goal was about to be achieved, the curse on Norman disappeared, stopping before reaching its target. Disappears. The curse backfired, and at the same time, a negative energy surged with the power provided by all the negative emotions. He screamed in agony, and desperately threw Nicholas to the ground. Thud. That night, Nicholas could only widen his eyes in despair, helplessly watching the painful scene unfold before him. He could only watch helplessly as Norman was taken away, his brother carried off like a living trophy. Nicholas trembled, stretching out his small hand, the scene always replaying in his mind. Trembles, the memory remained vividly etched in his mind. Growing up, no one was sure if he hated his brother. Did Nicholas resent his brother for abandoning him? Now, the boy from back then had grown into a tall, powerful young man. Contrary to Norman's thoughts, the king declared to the approaching Nicholas, "Congratulations, you are now the new captain of the knights." He knelt on one knee before the king, who held a sword, the king placing the sword on his shoulder and proclaiming, "The goddess will protect you." Kneels. Nicholas didn't hate or blame his brother. He knew that everything he had gained stemmed from his brother's disappearance. He knew that the resilience and newfound strength he possessed were all thanks to his brother's disappearance. After being appointed captain of the knights, Nicholas began his journey to find Norman. If it weren't for that experience, he would never have had the courage to go out and search for Norman. The journey of searching far and wide helped him gradually improve himself. Nicholas's search not only made him a better person, but also led him to a beautiful romance with Ophelia, who became his lover. The storyline kept flashing through Alicia's mind. Norman was the missing piece in the story of Nicholas Diaz, the protagonist of Ophelia's Night. She stood silently before Norman, speechless, then sighed softly in her heart. Alas, that's right. She finally reached an important conclusion in her mind. Mr. Norman, perhaps unintentionally, was the reason his brother walked towards his destined path. Looking at the sorrowful and self-blaming figure before her, she felt at a loss. I'm very confused and don't know how to explain it. The night was deep, the surroundings silent. Every house had extinguished its lights, and everyone had fallen into sweet dreams. At this moment, in her bedroom, Alicia held her face tightly, her expression gloomy. In the end, I still didn't say it. Gloomy. Even though it wasn't her responsibility, she still felt guilty. It's none of my business. Why do I keep worrying about this? But when she recalled Norman's eyes and pitiful appearance, Alicia couldn't help but soften. She quickly waved her hand, shaking the image from her mind. No, go away. Alicia quickly composed herself, finding a reason. Because Mr. Norman is of noble descent, I can't stop caring. That is to say, if I can't return him to his family, I will be blamed. Finally, Alicia made up her mind. She clenched her fists tightly. Clench his fists, she told herself, and I've always hated being misunderstood. Then she thought, all right, I'm going to face it bravely. A moment later, she decided to go find Norman. Seeing her appear at the door, he greeted her with surprise. Alicia said nothing, just stared at the person in front of her. Then she asked Norman, "May I come in? I have something to tell you." Norman looked at her, a clear look of nervousness on his face. Entering the room, Alicia stood at the doorway, arms crossed, and frankly told Norman, "I'll just come right out and say it. I know returning to your family. Doesn't this hit a nerve with you?" Norman blushed, awkwardly scratching the back of his neck and turning his head to the side. Seeing Norman's expression, Alicia thought, "He's blushing again. What a liar." Then she began speaking seriously. "People laughed at me. Absolutely no one believed in my abilities when I had to shoulder the responsibility of reviving my family. Not even my cousins believed I could do it when I first took on the responsibility of restoring the Melfort family." Alicia recounted the past to Norman in a casual tone. "Anyway, I didn't have time to pay attention to their meaningless words because for me, it was either succeed or fail completely. Faced with the harsh words of my family, I chose to ignore them and diligently completed the task I shouldered. I disregarded those insults and did everything I could." Then she asked Norman a question. "Tell me, do you think I should have listened to my cousins back then and let them, like vicious vultures, divide up the remaining scraps of the Melfort family?" Norman certainly couldn't accept such a thing. Of course not. Having received a satisfactory answer, Alicia implicitly addressed Norman's situation. "That's right. If we just sit idly by, we can't change the things we want." Hearing her say this, a look of surprise immediately appeared on Norman's face, as if he had realized something. She asked Norman directly, "Do you want your brother to live with hatred for you day after day?" He lowered his head, avoiding Alicia's gaze, and then spoke the answer from his heart. "No." Alicia struck while the iron was hot and continued to persuade him. "Then go see him. Apologize to him." Then she also clenched her skirt, giving him another path. "If the apology fails, if that's not enough for him, then you can start looking for other ways to reconcile." Clenches, she raised her head, looked directly into his eyes, and asked again, "Do you understand?" At this point, Norman's mood was much better, and he smiled gently, answering Alicia. "I understand." Hearing the satisfactory reply, she also smiled gently at him. Smiles, but when she noticed Norman's affectionate gaze, Alicia felt a shiver run down her spine. She thought, "Ugh, why is he looking at me like that?" Shivers, goosebumps. Just then, the two suddenly heard a noise outside. Alicia quickly turned and hid behind Norman. He curiously stepped forward and opened the door. Click! Outside the door was Stan, holding a plate of food. When she saw the two of them together, a joyful expression immediately appeared on her face. "I'm so glad you two are together at this time." Alicia showed her face. She cleared her throat and then, "Thanks, Stan." Yes, thank you for the snacks." Clear's throat. Her eyes immediately lit up. "Huh." Stan leaned close to Norman and whispered some inappropriate words to him. "Awaken your instincts and pounce on her. You're both young and full of vigor. What's there to be shy about?" Alicia could only helplessly shout, "Stan." Then she stepped forward and firmly grabbed her shoulders. Rushes. He watched their retreating figures and smiled, blushing. After leaving Norman, Alicia cornered Stan against the wall, slapping her hands on the wall beside her. Bang! Stan knew what was happening, but still asked with a playful smile, "What's wrong?" Alicia quickly said, "You have to stop what you're doing." But contrary to Alicia's thoughts, Stan just lowered her head and said to her, "But think about it." She mentioned Philip, Alicia's fiancé, a guy who only knew how to drink and chase women. She persuaded her to give up on that unworthy fellow. "That Philip is good for nothing. He just needs your money. Do you really want to marry a despicable pretty boy? He doesn't even attract anyone's attention." Then, when she thought of Norman, her voice softened. "Unlike that weasel, Mr. Norman comes from a morally upright family, and his reputation is still intact because he was sealed in that okay for 10 years. Stan continued to persuade Alicia, implying that she and Norman should be together, not Philip. In fact, he is far superior to the other in both appearance and character. I mean that physique. "Miss, don't you think Mr. Norman is more suitable for you?" She thought, "I don't know how to refute this. Everything she said is right. How can I refute it?" Although this was what she thought, Alicia still looked directly into her eyes and frankly said, "Have you forgotten? The more useless my husband is, the better." She clenched her fists, her resolve firm. "And I won't change my mind." Clenches. Then she repeated, "I absolutely will not allow anyone to have the power to harm my grandson. A talented husband will pose a threat to Alfred's future. I won't let anyone come between my grandson and his inheritance. Alicia continued, repeatedly admonishing Stan that urging Mr. Norman was extremely rude. Hearing how Alicia had sacrificed her lifelong happiness for the sake of her family's revival, Stan's eyes welled up with tears. Meanwhile, Miss Alicia continued talking about her relationship with Norman, saying he didn't care about love at all. Finally, ignoring the shining eyes of admiration from Stan, Alicia proposed, "Now promise me, you won't try to set me up with Mr. Norman again." Just as she spoke, she suddenly noticed someone's presence. Norman stood before her, the two facing each other without a word. An awkward expression appeared on everyone's face. Alicia avoided Norman's gaze. Although she opened her mouth, she couldn't utter a single word. In the end, she could only curse silently in her heart. Damn it. Then the three of them sat down at a table to eat. The surroundings were noisy and bustling, but the atmosphere here was unusually quiet. Stan picked up his fork and ate awkwardly. Norman was the first to speak, breaking the strange atmosphere. "Excuse me." He brought up the topic of Alicia's fiancé in front of the two of them. "What kind of person is Miss Alicia's fiancé?" Hearing this, both she and Stan were stunned. She calmly replied to Norman, "I believe you've never heard of him. He's a minor noble from the western region." Stan also whispered, "Is it the Molphic family or Morphu?" She softly replied, "It's Morfolk." Norman murmured the name of Alicia's fiancé, Philip Morfolk. Alicia didn't know what to say, so she just vaguely said while cutting the meat, "Well, after you return to your family, you'll also find a suitable person." But Norman quickly countered this reply, "That's not easy." Alicia immediately realized that a secret was hidden within this answer. Norman gave the two a sad smile. "No one wants to marry someone like me." The plot replayed in Alicia's mind. Before his disappearance, Normandius had been engaged. Norman's fiancée was a beautiful and gentle princess, Princess Calliope, a promising candidate for the throne. The engagement between the two was a marriage praised by all, a promising bachelor of lot hens. And a promising heir painted a beautiful picture. People called it the marriage of the century. But tragedy struck after Norman's disappearance. However, shortly after Norman's disappearance, the heartbroken princess ended her own life. These were the events that transpired at the time, and also the official announcement. But unlike this world, Alicia had read the novel and knew the real story wasn't like that. But according to what I read in Ophelia's Night, she was instigated by a royal priest. The truth is, Calliope was seduced by a clergyman from the imperial capital and served a dark god. That person was none other than Nyx, the same madman who ruined the Melfont family. Completely taken in by Nyx's honeyed words, Calliope believed him entirely, ignoring hundreds of warnings. She suffered from Nyx's corrupting influence. Calliope set up a curse ritual, the reason for which wasn't revealed in the novel either, and it was that ritual that made another person jealous, that sparked the seeds of envy. Iago began to feel jealous and carried out his cruel actions. These thoughts had been lurking in Iago's mind. In the end, it was Norman who suffered the curse and was imprisoned by his own fiancée. Ultimately, Norman was imprisoned by his own fiancée's hand. Then, suddenly recalling the past, Alicia paused slightly. "I didn't expect to remember this. In the end, it was I who told Mr. Norman why the effects of the ritual killed the princess." Pause, she looked at Norman with confusion, then sincerely apologized to him. "I'm truly very sorry. I shouldn't have brought up the deceased princess." But Norman was very calm. "It's all right." Although Norman's words were calm, the content was extremely unsettling. Politics is ultimately more important than that unpleasant matter, Mississippi. After all, proposing to the princess's former fiancé is indeed absurd. If I am ostracized by the nobles, that's probably the reason. Alicia lowered her head, not daring to look him in the eye. The atmosphere began to become awkward again, just like before. But Norman spoke first, but to be honest, he's quite satisfied with his current situation. "I don't understand why, but I felt so happy when I learned I had become the most useless bachelor in the Empire." Hearing him say this, Alicia asked what. She immediately recalled what she had said to Stan earlier. She needed a husband who was as useless as possible. She immediately panicked, then asked herself, "Wait, is he repeating my words?" Then Alicia raised her head and looked at Norman's calm face. Finally, she blushed, turned her head to the side, and cleared her throat while comforting herself. "I might be overthinking a him." Alicia quickly regained her usual composure. Mr. Norman is too modest. Once you return to your family, I believe there will be many young ladies willing to marry you. Hearing this, Norman's mood became somewhat downcast, but that would be a family-arranged marriage with a woman I don't know at all. What happiness is there in living like that? Alicia agreed with him, but also reminded him, yes, we all want a marriage for love, but that only exists in fairy tales, Mr. Norman. Most people are forced to compromise with reality. At this, Norman immediately broke into a bright smile, interrupting Alicia's long speech. So, you also yearn for a marriage for love. Radiant, like a child, he said to her in an excited voice, "Your wish will come true, miss. Trust me." Alicia looked at him incredulously, then glanced at Stan sitting next to her, who was wearing a lewd smile. Oh! A chill ran down Alicia's spine, and her heart began to pound. She shivered. Why is she looking at me like that? Just then, a cheerful voice interrupted their conversation. There you are. A figure zipped into the room. I knew I'd find you here. Hearing the voice, Alicia immediately recognized who it was. She turned her head, not wanting to look at the newcomer. Turns. Norman, meanwhile, looked at the person with a puzzled expression. Then, witnessing the person's actions toward Alicia, Norman was even more shocked. Gano walked forward and hugged Alicia tightly, smiling. My Alicia, hug. He wore a smug grin, his hand on the table, tapping repeatedly. Tap, tap. Gano rested his chin on Alicia's head, completely ignoring Norman's presence. Didn't you miss me at all? She crossed her arms and said in an annoyed tone, Why would I miss you? You're here as a bloodhound, not a lapdog. Norman listened silently, looking at Gano, puzzled. Bloodhound. He placed his hand on the table, seemingly hesitant to say something. Hesitates. Gano nonchalantly responded to Alicia's sarcasm. Whether I'm tracking or not, a dog always wags its tail when it sees its owner. Then he started wiggling his hips, making such an indecent gesture. Wiggles, wags. Alicia, sitting next to him, was speechless, then conceded his point. Well, that's true. Gano spread his arms, making a request of her. You've been gone so long. You owe me a hug. Norman opened his mouth, wanting to say something. Then he immediately stood up. Stance. But what happened next took Norman completely by surprise. Alicia kicked Gano and warned him, if you dare hug me again, I promise you'll regret it. Having received the kick, Gano could only collapse to the ground, trembling all over, groaning in pain. You, trembles. Stan, never one to miss a chance to stir the pot, started a jeer. Oh my God, what a nutcracker. Gano, lying on the ground, asked in a bewildered voice, Huh, nutcracker, then continued to play along, roaring, Come on, these are the hardest nuts in the world. Alicia sighed, then put her hands on her hips and asked him, Since you know I'm safe, why didn't you wait in Romdak? Now the association has to pay for your trip again. What a waste of money, I can't understand. Gano immediately sobered up, sat up straight, and said directly to her, I missed you too much. As soon as he finished speaking, both of them fell silent. Alicia warned him again, cut the crap, report, and get lost. Disgusting. Gano was speechless. Gano turned his face and gestured to Alicia. Turns. She suddenly remembered that Norman was still standing there. Then Alicia took Gano's hand and said, Excuse me, Mr. Norman. She turned to Norman and said, I need to discuss some association matters with my partner. Please excuse us. Then she took Gano to discuss association affairs, while Norman, who was left behind, stood there dumbfounded, speechless. Please take your time. Thank you. Alicia didn't beat around the bush and asked Gano directly, So, what's the matter? He also said directly, I ran into Ophelia. At the mention of Ophelia, she couldn't hide her emotions and quickly warned him, If you're joking again, I'll strangle you. But Gano denied it in a frivolous tone. How dare I lie? I'm the loyal slave of my lovely master. Then in the blink of an eye, he became serious again. But it's true, I saw her near the entrance of Chatham. At that time, Ophelia asked him, Gano, the representative of the Romdak Association, right? And when he saw Ophelia, he was stunned, unable to believe his eyes. What are you doing here? She warned Gano, This is for Alicia. Be quiet. In the end, Gano decided to remain silent in front of her. I had no choice but to stop before she cursed me out because she mentioned your name. He recounted what had happened earlier. She told me to follow her and gave me some instructions, which I found strange. Alicia asked in an interrogative tone, Strange. How strange? Gano repeated Ophelia's words verbatim. If you want Alicia to return to the manor safely, do as I say. Gano turned his head. That's what she said. Then I went to the flea market to see if she was telling the truth. And just as she said, I found a cultist casting a spell. Alicia's hands at her sides gradually tightened. He dealt with the cultist immediately afterward. But, hey, everything's resolved, so no need to worry anymore. The person who had been silent spoke up. I need to see her. Gano was surprised by her words. Alicia addressed Gano directly by name and gave him an order. Bring Ophelia back to me. This is your next order. While the two of them were talking, Norman sat dejectedly in the dining hall. Stan, also feeling awkward when it was just the two of them, took a sip of water and cleared her throat. Ahem, Norman began. May I ask what the relationship is between Mr. Gano and Miss Alicia? Seeing his gloomy face, Stan quickly waved her hands. It's not like that, I assure you. Gano is just a representative of the association, nothing more. A sad smile quickly appeared on his face. So they're collaborating? Then they must be quite close. Stan hurriedly tried to salvage the situation. No, that's not it. Stan explained the relationship between Alicia and Gano to him. Gano is literally just a representative. According to the terms of the contract, he's more like an indentured servant. She quickly urged him not to mind Gano too much. Don't worry about him. He's currently only responsible for exporting goods to the kingdom of Necta. She's close to him just to make her work easier, and the reason Miss Alicia tolerates him is simply because she needs someone to handle those troublesome errands. But even though she said so, Norman wasn't quite convinced. For a servant, he always seems happy to leverage his charm. He said, remembering Gano's impropriety earlier. Stan crossed her arms, racking her brains for a way to explain to Norman. Well, to be honest, it's not the contract that keeps him here. He stays because of his feelings for Miss Alicia. Then, a bright glint flashed in her eyes. But I'll tell you what, Gano isn't Miss Alicia's type. She blurted out, telling him Gano's background. He's just a pirate posing as a nobleman's son. That's just his way of presenting himself, as a lowly person. Then she concluded, speaking of men, Miss Alicia prefers refined and aesthetically pleasing works of art like yourself. Hearing Stan praise him like this, he gave a gentle smile, a refined and aesthetically pleasing smile. At this point, he addressed her as Madam Stan and asked her for advice. I have a very important appointment tonight. Could I ask you for some advice? Meanwhile, something was happening on Alicia's side. Gano looked down at the ground. You're here. Since you're here, stop being angry with me. The ground was a mess, as if a bloody battle had taken place. What would have happened if I had been as slow as a turtle like your guards? Alicia, unconcerned with what had just happened, only asked about Ophelia. How is she? Gano answered truthfully, I don't know either. That was the first time I saw that girl. She looked very different from the wanted poster. Gano recounted Ophelia's state at the time. She looked tired. Alicia didn't look at him, but gazed in another direction, her heart aching for Ophelia's plight. I can imagine. The life of a fugitive must be even harder. She ordered him to continue his mission. My guard will arrive today. With him here, I'll be safe. You just focus on your next task. Gano asked her again, so if I catch her, will you put her in jail? Alicia quickly retorted, no. She crossed her arms, striking a haughty pose, and commanded Gano, bring her to me. Alicia hugged her arms tightly. After all, she still owes me a lot of answers. 100 worries arose in her heart. First of all, how did she know that one of Nyx's subordinates would appear in this town to attack me? This mysterious incident didn't even appear in the novel. It's something that wasn't even revealed in the book. The contents of the novel flashed through Alicia's mind, but there was no mention of this at all. No chapter in Ophelia's Night began with what if Alicia Melfont survived. The fact that she had survived until now was not within the book's calculations at all. The book hadn't even considered this possibility. The devil's shadow always lurked around her, lunging at her. She could only rely on herself to save herself, which meant being unable to predict the future. My fate has now changed. There was simply no way, absolutely no way. Alicia could only rely on her own strength. But Ophelia's actions puzzled her greatly. So, how could Ophelia have foreseen the danger that awaited me? Alicia was immersed in a train of her own thoughts. Come to think of it, it's also strange that she went out of her way to see Gano. I only met Gano after establishing Romdak, so there's no way she could have known him at this point in time. She arrived at an unbelievable hypothesis, her whole body trembling with the thought. Could it be that she knows about the existence of the novel? Trembling, the more Alicia thought about it, the paler her face became and her breathing grew heavy. Gasps. If she realizes that the only way to restore her divine power is to kill me, she'll... Gano hurriedly called out to her, Alicia. At the same time, Alicia began to feel dizzy, and he caught her. Are you all right? Alicia regained some of her composure and said, panting, don't worry, I won't let anyone or anything kill me. Gasps. Hearing her say this, he gritted his teeth. Of course, you're Alicia Melfont after all. Gano started acting like a condescending old man, but who wants a master ordering around a sexy, obedient slave? Alicia looked at him and chuckled softly in exasperation. Just then, a voice called out from afar, Miss Alicia. She looked at the newcomer and said, You're late. The scout replied, Please forgive me, Mississippi. We investigated the matter of your kidnapping. She questioned them again, her tone puzzled. What are you talking about? The scout answered, According to our sources, you were kidnapped by Nyx, the heretic who was imprisoned at the scene. Alicia raised her hand to interrupt him, wanted to hear the main point. I understand. Get to the point. He continued. Now, the scout told Alicia about Nyx. He's the heretic sealed in the deep waters of the cathedral. At that moment, the water in the cathedral stirred, splashing with a whoosh. Just as the scout had said, Nyx, the one who slept eternally in darkness, was in that water. Alicia said with a determined look, He must be the heretic sealed in the deep waters of the cathedral, never to see the light of day. Gano frowned, looking at her with a serious yet admiring expression. Good. Alicia was a little worried. Lowering her eyes, she thought, if Nyx is truly sealed, then there's no reason for me to rush back to the manor. I need to use this time just in case. At this point, Gano walked up to the scout and asked, Where exactly has Nyx been hiding all this time? He scratched his head, an indescribable expression on his face, and replied, I'm not too sure. That name sounds strange, like After hesitating for a moment, the scout suddenly blurted out, Tantalos. Alicia asked, puzzled, Tantalos. He nodded firmly. That's right. Gano, standing beside her, asked with great curiosity, Why do you know that name? Alicia narrowed her eyes and replied with a tired expression, That's where they imprisoned me. Upon hearing this, Gano exclaimed in alarm, What? That madman. Alicia didn't say much more. She asked sternly, Who found Nyx and Tantalos? The scout answered frankly, It was the knight's commander, Mr. Nicholas. Hearing this, Alicia felt a mix of emotions. She pursed her lips, lost in thought, which means it was Ophelia. Nicholas was just an accomplice, helping her avoid arrest. Then, an unbelievable thought arose in Alicia's mind. But how did Ophelia find Tantalos in the first place? The scene shifted to the evening at the Melfont Manor. Gano shivered and said, Let me escort you back to the manor, Alicia. I need to ensure your safety. Alicia was a little displeased. She made her stance clear, replying sternly, You heard the scout. Nyx has been sealed. There's no need to worry anymore. It's time to go back and fulfill your duties according to the contract. Hearing this, he scratched his head and blurted out, You and that damn contract, honestly. Then Gano turned around and left, speaking in a resentful tone. Fine, if that's what you wish. I'll do as you say. Hearing this, Alicia lowered her eyes, her face seemingly hiding many thoughts. She took a light step forward and sighed heavily. In the novel, the reason Ophelia was able to find Tantalos, a terrifying scene flashed through her mind, was because of the letter Nyx sent with my sister's severed arm. No, it was all because of the drastic impact of my death at that time that Ophelia came to Tantalos. According to the novel, Ophelia personally went to Nyx's fortress to save me. If I wasn't there, she would have no reason to know of Tantalos' existence. Thinking of this, Alicia thought somewhat sadly, but in the end, she still went there regardless. She looked up at the sky and asked, What can you see, Ophelia? The wind howled past, and Alicia, still immersed in her emotions, silently asked, Do you know that my death is the only way for you to regain your power? At that moment, the door to the room quietly closed, and the curtains fluttered incessantly in the wind. Only Alicia stood alone in the room, looking desolate. Suddenly, she glanced downwards. Alicia stared thoughtfully at the Teresa flowers on the table. Just then, a Teresa petal fell, captivating her gaze. Alicia's eyes suddenly changed, her pupils dilating in an instant. Ophelia's figure appeared, accompanied by a warm voice. You always suit Teresa flowers so well, as if they were born for you. When she heard that faint voice, her heart suddenly pounded. Alicia took a step back, her heart still racing. With a hint of fear, she called out, Show yourself. She stumbled backward step by step. As the figure materialized, Alicia gasped, Ophelia. She gave a warm smile and replied, "It's been a while, Alicia." Witnessing this, Alicia's face paled, and her whole body suddenly trembled slightly. Just then, the howling wind outside the window intensified her fear. In the dim night, Nyx's sinister figure appeared. He attacked Ophelia without a second thought. Just as Nyx's blade grazed Alicia's flesh, the holy water that had once helped her survive. 10 years later, the holy water returned to its owner, imbuing Ophelia with even greater power, both physically and spiritually. The thought made Alicia stumble as she covered her face in anguish. And she crouched down. Ophelia rushed to her side in alarm, asking with concern, "Are you all right?" But Alicia coldly rejected her. "Don't come any closer." Hearing this, Ophelia stopped in her tracks, stunned, and suddenly cried out, "Alicia." Alicia pulled something out from her skirt. She rushed forward and brandished it in front of Ophelia's face, startling her. She held a sharp sword in her hand, its blade gleaming coldly. With a furrowed brow, Alicia said, "If you take one more step." Ophelia was stunned. Alicia continued her threat, "I'll kill you." She stared at Ophelia with a cold and terrifying gaze. Her brow still furrowed. She gripped the sword resolutely, but Norman's voice still echoed in her ears. "I'll try to stay by your side." Recalling the moment he pressed the sword into her hand, he'd whispered, "But just in case." Whoosh. She looked at the sword with some confusion, but Norman had still kindly instructed her, "Keep it with you at all times." He smiled brightly, then continued, "Well, I suppose there won't be a time when you'll need to draw it." Her hand clenched tight around the sword. Alicia thought with a tremor, "Unfortunately, Mr. Norman, you were proven wrong." Then, she remembered that day in the past. Ophelia left us there to die without a word. She was the one who ended our friendship, not me. Recalling the incident made Alicia grit her teeth. And, according to that book, as long as Ophelia lives, I face death. She glared and harshly questioned Ophelia. "How did you know I came here looking for her?" She paused. Ophelia quickly explained, "Alicia, you've changed. Calm down." She shouted furiously, "Shut up." Alicia slowly took a step forward, then angrily replied, "Stop pretending to care about me." She looked directly at her and roared, "It makes me sick." Ophelia trembled with fear and replied, "You know I would never hurt you." Alicia pressed forward angrily, demanding, "Why are you here? What do you want from me?" Ophelia, backing away and trembling, said, "I just want to protect you from danger." Thump! Alicia gritted her teeth and yelled, "I don't believe you." She roared in Ophelia's face, "The moment Nyx's blade grazed my flesh, the holy water that helped me survive returned to its owner. It's all because of you." Overcome with emotion, she suddenly grabbed Ophelia's arm forcefully. Alicia pinned her down, then glared and yelled, "I've been in danger from the very beginning." Her eyes glared at her furiously. Suddenly, Alicia seemed to realize something and was greatly surprised. Before her was a frail Ophelia, exhausted and not even bothering to resist. Even if I try to move forward, every scene from the pages of that book still lingers in my mind. Last night was no exception. In my dream, one of Nyx's subordinates jumped out from the darkness and suddenly attacked Ophelia. In my memory, when Ophelia was attacked, she was both terrified and afraid, despite her swordsmanship training. After losing her divine power, Ophelia couldn't avoid the sneak attack and lost an arm in the assault. As far as I know, her right arm has been reattached to her shoulder, but there's no healing magic around that can help it fully recover. I don't know why that damn novel told me all the tragedies we suffered were true. Seeing Ophelia like this, Alicia felt sympathy as well. She asked softly and cautiously, "Your hand, was it destined?" Alicia asked frankly, "It still hurts now, doesn't it?" She was stunned and retorted, "How did you know?" Ophelia cried out, "No, you can't know anything." Alicia turned away, then said thoughtfully, "That secret is so significant. It makes your powerful divine power my only source of life." She questioned angrily and painfully, "Or do you mean I should have died a long time ago?" Ophelia was stunned, only managing to cry out, "Alicia." She continued to press painfully, "Or do you want me to remain in the dark forever?" Hearing her continue with, "My death is your only source of life," Ophelia burst into tears. She slowly sat up and replied, "I won't let you die, I promise." Hearing this, Alicia replied sadly, "So you admit it. My fate is sealed." She gripped the sword and thought, "I wish I had never read Ophelia's Night, for Ophelia's story to exist." My story must be erased. Because of her aura, my life for the past 10 years was destined to be written as a despair. Alicia used all her strength, but still couldn't bear it. She replied weakly, "So you also know I can't kill you." Then, her eyes became vacant as she continued, "If you die, I can't save my life either." Hearing this, Ophelia's tears flowed uncontrollably as she sobbed. "I'm sorry, Alicia." Alicia didn't back down. "But I haven't given up yet," she declared frankly. Gently lifting Ophelia's chin, she said, "Wipe away your crocodile tears. You didn't come here to put on a show. If you believe our fates can be changed, it means that book is useless." She lifted Ophelia's chin higher, then furrowed her brow seriously. "Now, I'm going to ask you a few questions, and you better not hide anything. I'm going to make that damned novel eat its own words." Her expression remained serious. "Is there a way for me," Alicia shouted angrily, "to control your divine power and live to the end?" Losing control of her emotions, she pressed closer to Ophelia and demanded, "Is there a way for me to control your divine power?" Ophelia asked blankly, "Divine power?" Alicia nodded decisively. "Yes, that extraordinary power, your pride." She continued calmly, "I activated it in Tantalos, and now I'm trying to figure out how to recreate the situation." Ophelia paused, then asked, "So, you activated it?" She looked at the subtle expression on Alicia's face, wondering, what kind of expression is that? Suddenly, Alicia shouted angrily, "That's right. Thanks to your power, I'm able to sit here today. I'm going to use it to secure a happy ending for myself. So tell me." Hearing this, a faint smile played on Ophelia's lips. Softly she said, "Ah." Looking at Alicia affectionately, she continued, "The key is to call my name with all your heart." Alicia blushed crimson, her reply stunned. "What did you say?" Seeing her reaction, Ophelia asked with concern, "Your face is red. Are you all right? I remember you used to have a weak constitution and always had a fever." Alicia shook off her hand. "Mind your own business and answer the question." Ophelia clasped her hands together, her voice laced with worry. "Using my divine power is extremely dangerous for you as well." She continued her anxious explanation, "Giving you my power will bring, and most importantly, I had to consider the time factor. You need time to truly learn how to use it. That's why I cast a special spell on you. This spell hides your divine power, and it can only be activated when you call my name out loud." After she finished speaking, Ophelia and Alicia could only stare at each other, the space falling into a strange silence. Then, Alicia's cheeks flushed crimson as she thought in shock. "Wait, so she knows I once screamed her name, begging for help." Clenching her fists, she said, "That won't happen again." Ophelia, beside her, responded softly, "I hope so too. After all, activating that power means you're in danger." Hearing this, Alicia yelled, losing control regardless. "You knew Nyx and his followers sacrificed countless lives in Tantalos. Why didn't you save them?" She replied softly and timidly, "I couldn't lose the opportunity one created for you again." Ophelia turned away, continuing hesitantly, "I had no choice. I had to wait until the moment you started to act." Alicia roared in anger, "That's just sophistry." Ophelia suddenly burst into tears. "I saw it. I saw you die in Tantalos." Hearing this, Alicia frowned, thinking to herself, did she hit her head? Then, calming down, Ophelia recounted, "I still remember it vividly. I had to live in a world without you for 2 years. It really happened." Alicia asked, shocked. 2 years. The time recorded in Ophelia's night ended exactly 18 months after my death. Now, recalling this, Alicia began to piece together the clues. Ophelia spent a year killing Nyx and punishing the rest of his followers. 6 months later, she married Nicholas. She glared at Ophelia, demanding, "Ophelia's night only covers 18 months after my death, but you said 2 years. Is there a sequel I haven't read?" She asked blankly, "Whose night? I don't understand." Seeing her confusion, Alicia herself became bewildered. She really doesn't know. Then, she asked frankly, "Aren't you engaged to Nicholas? You're destined to marry him, so why did you marry Nicholas?" She slumped to the ground, lost in thought. "I thought I was the only crazy one who believed in a novel that could predict the future, but now someone else is saying they've seen the future." Ophelia's face became expressionless. A faint voice asked, "Tell me, Alicia, did the goddess Mara also seek you out?" Hearing this, Alicia asked back, slightly startled, "Mara, that goddess?" A wave of sadness washed over Alicia. "Our sources of information are different, but she must have sensed something too. Looking at her, Ophelia pleaded, "Please, if you know anything about this, tell me. What exactly is this novel you mentioned?" Alicia stared at her hands, thinking to herself, however, the future she experienced was a direct consequence of my death. She recalled Ophelia crying, "I saw you die in Tantalos. That future is irrelevant now, because I'm still alive. That means Ophelia's secret is also useless. Stand up." She glanced at Ophelia, then snapped, "You can leave now." Just then, a knock came at the door. A voice called out, "You have mail, Miss Alicia." Alicia replied, "Wait outside." Then, turning back to Ophelia, she said, "I've heard enough, Ophelia." Pointing directly at the window, she said, "I've had enough of you. Get out." Tears streamed down her face as the words tumbled out. "Alicia," she stated frankly, "have you forgotten that you're no longer family? The day you chose to abandon Alfred and me, everything between us ended." Alicia slammed her fist against the wall. "I'm not that weak child anymore. The one who always needed protecting, always needing you to take care of me." She raged, "Get out a lot hence. I never want to see you again." A servant's voice called from outside the door, "Miss, is everything all right? What's going on?" Another voice added, "I don't know. I heard a noise in there. I must break down the door and check." Just then, Ophelia rushed forward and shoved her shoulder hard. "What do you think you're doing?" Alicia cried out. Ophelia whispered in her ear, "Remember this." Gripping her hand tightly, she pleaded earnestly, "There will always be someone willing to do anything for you, just to see you happy." At that moment, the guards burst through the door, shouting, "Miss Alicia," they cried, looking at her with concern. "Are you hurt, Mississippi?" But she just stared intently at her palm. Alicia stared in astonishment at the small slip of paper in her hand. "What is this?" She wondered silently. The guards entered, looking around fiercely. "We heard a commotion." Alicia turned around discreetly as the guards anxiously asked, "Miss, are you all right?" She simply glanced at them languidly. "A thief tried to climb in through the window, but he ran away when he saw me." "A thief!" they exclaimed in alarm. "We'll double the guard." She shrugged indifferently. "No need. I doubt he'll be back." "And you mentioned a letter earlier, correct?" They immediately produced the letter and handed it to her, replying gently, "Yes, dear Mississippi. It's from Lord Nicholas Diaz." Alicia took the letter and opened it, her expression suddenly turning grave. After a moment, she looked at the guards and listlessly commanded, "You may leave. I don't wish to be disturbed." They obliged. "Good night, Mississippi." After the door closed, Alicia walked over and sat delicately on the bed, lost in thought. She sighed softly. With a displeased expression, she read the letter. "The fallen priest Nyx has been sealed within the temple." Alicia tossed the letter aside abruptly. "Nothing new," she exclaimed. She suddenly clenched her fists, lost in determined thought for a moment. Then, the previous scene flashed through her mind, Ophelia's image and voice still echoing in her ears. "Remember this. There will always be someone willing to do anything for you, just to see you happy." Clutching the slip of paper tightly in her hand, she whispered, "Ophelia." Gazing out the window, Alicia pondered, how could you have possibly predicted the future? Outside, Norman arrived with a basket of Teresa flowers. Inside was a cat named Antoinette. "Ah, cat!" he exclaimed in surprise. He watched it meow a few times and subconsciously blurted out, "This flower basket is a gift for Miss Alicia." Norman gently reached out and stroked Antoinette's head. As he petted her, he murmured, "It should be all right. You remind me of her." Just then, someone called out Lord Diaz. He turned around to see Mrs. Stan rushing towards him. "I've been looking everywhere for you." Stan looked at him tenderly. "We haven't finished trying on clothes yet." Norman replied with a wry smile, "I think that's enough for today." Then he thought to himself, "I just wanted to learn more about Miss Alicia's preferences." Hearing his intentions, Stan immediately objected. No. I know you're charming in appearance, but clothes are important too." Just then, Antoinette meowed. Seeing it, she exclaimed excitedly, "Oh my goodness, this cat is adorable." Stan gazed at it in fascination. "Where did you find this little fluff ball?" Norman stroked the cat and asked, "Doesn't she remind you of Miss Alicia?" She nodded in agreement, leaning closer and sighing. "She really does. She'll win her heart instantly." Stan continued to praise Antoinette's appearance. "I didn't know you were so fond of animals. Is this cat a gift for our dear Mississippi?" Norman looked at the cat and said softly, "Miss Alicia and I will raise her together." Suddenly, a flock of birds appeared in the sky, accompanied by a voice announcing, "The fireworks are about to begin." Norman quickly got ready, saying excitedly, I should go and get her. He stroked Antoinette. Are you excited, little kitty? Hearing this, Stan blushed. She exclaimed in surprise, together. That's wonderful. Just then, the sound of footsteps approached. He scooped Antoinette into his arms and carried her somewhere. The surroundings were quite noisy and bustling, with many people coming and going. Stan followed Norman. She approached the guards and asked, "Why is there a carriage coming here so late?" They simply looked at her and exclaimed, "Mrs. Stan." Then, the guard quickly whispered something in Stan's ear. Just then, someone gasped in admiration. Lord Norman calmly asked, "Did Miss Alicia send you?" The guards nodded. "Yes, we came at the behest of our dear miss." He bowed his head respectfully. "She commanded us to escort you to your residence." 2 days later, at the Melfont estate, Alicia arrived, radiant, as those around her exclaimed, "It's so good to have you back, dear Mississippi. We've been waiting for your return." She smiled serenely and replied gently, "It has been a while, hasn't it?" She looked towards Erica and called out, "Erica." Alicia sat down slowly. "Is everything all right?" She nodded in response. "Yes." Suddenly, her eyes caught sight of the stack of documents beside her. Alicia recognized the documents. "Weren't you acting head while I was away?" Erica nodded. "Indeed, but some important matters piled up during your absence. The most urgent ones have been resolved. These are the remaining ones that require your personal review, Guildmaster." Hearing this, Alicia merely glanced at them and smiled kindly. She took out a small note and showed it to Erica. Erica took the note and read it, then cried out in surprise, an indescribable expression on her face. "Is this intelligence?" "The answer lies in Sister Calliope's faith. Meet with Petra and Kluger within this week." Alicia nodded in agreement. "That's right." Then she furrowed her brows in question. "But why this week?" Putting the clues together, Alicia believed, without a doubt, that she had to act according to the future Ophelia had foreseen. Upon hearing this, Erica left, not forgetting to say, "I'll arrange a meeting with Petra and Kluger whenever you wish." Erica looked at Alicia with concern, thinking, she's too quiet. After a moment of contemplation, she asked, "What about Lord Diaz?" Erica immediately reported, "Everything has been arranged as you instructed." Alicia replied listlessly, "I know. You should be arriving soon." Seeing her state, Erica called out, "Miss." She trembled, her hands clenching slightly. "It's just, I don't know." Alicia looked up and asked frankly, will he be able to return his family safely? Meanwhile, a carriage rattled along the road. Norman sat inside, gazing out the window, thinking, why do I feel so strange? He gently stroked Antoinette, lost in thought. She was just kind to me, that's all. Nothing more. After a while, the guards brought him to the Melfont estate. "Miss Alicia ordered us to escort you back to your residence," one said politely. Stan said awkwardly, "I'm truly sorry, Lord Norman. I should have let you two be alone. Miss Alicia sent you a letter. She wrote it before returning to the Melfont estate." The letter read, "Lord Norman, I beg your forgiveness. It seems I ultimately couldn't keep my promise to you. I hope I have expressed my gratitude sincerely. Please tell Stan I apologize for leaving without a word. But for now, allow me to express my thanks with these few words, hoping to convey my most heartfelt sentiments." She had also sternly stated, "Lord Norman is an esteemed guest of the guild, as he is my bodyguard. He saved my life." She earnestly instructed the guards, "Please ensure his comfort until he reaches his residence. I wouldn't have survived if it weren't for his help. Although this cannot repay your kindness, please allow me to escort you safely back to your home. It's the least I can do. May your days be filled with joy and laughter. Miss Alicia Melfont." Norman read silently, as if lost in thought. His heart pounded. Is this what it feels like to be forlorn? Perhaps it's due to the short time we spent together. Those moments that occurred because of the terms of our contract. Without those terms, she and I would have been nothing but strangers. After traveling some distance, the carriage suddenly stopped. Norman was startled and stepped out of the carriage. The guard beside him said, "We've arrived at the Diaz residence, Lord Norman." Looking at his surroundings, his hand trembled as he clenched it. 10 years. He placed his hand on his chest, feeling that everything must have changed, except for him. Will they even want him back? Norman wondered, what would Miss Alicia do? Suddenly, his eyes lit up as if he had seen something. Norman suddenly realized that if they just sat idly by, they couldn't change what they wanted. Alicia's image and voice echoed, "Go see your brother. Apologize to him." Hearing this, his face stiffened. Perhaps to her, "Miss Alicia, I'm just a stranger." His hand reached for the door latch, still thinking, but to me, she's much more than that. Just then, Nicholas appeared, and everyone joyfully welcomed Norman. "My lord, welcome home." Nicholas stepped forward excitedly. "Welcome home, brother." He smiled warmly and replied, I'm back. Norman and Nicholas stared at each other in silence. He stood there dumbfounded for a moment, then softly asked, Is it really you? Norman exclaimed in surprise, Nicholas, look at you, you've grown so much. Then, Nicholas suddenly rushed forward and embraced him tightly. Norman looked on, startled, and cried out, Nicholas. Sobbing like a child, Nicholas asked, Tell me this is real. Norman patted him and said, Yes, it's me, brother. But Nicholas's tears kept flowing, his emotions overflowing as he cried out, Norman. Nicholas looked up, sobbing, and said, I missed you so much. Hearing this, Norman put a comforting hand on him. All right, if you keep this up, I'll start crying too. Seeing him sobbing like a child, the people standing there whispered amongst themselves, Lord Nicholas is crying. Be mindful. People tend to become sentimental when they're near death. Just then, Morton appeared and sternly ordered, Quiet. Norman looked at Nicholas with an affectionate gaze, his eyes full of love. The scene shifted to a luxurious mansion. In a room, someone was hastily writing a personal letter, beginning with the familiar sentence, Dear Miss Alicia, it has been a week since I was reunited with my family, and for this, I will be eternally grateful to you. Everything is as you said, a warm welcome, not a single harsh word spoken. But that is enough for me. What about you, dear Mississippi? I imagine you must be busy dealing with a mountain of tasks that piled up while you were away. Alicia said with a serious expression, I had hoped things would be fine when I returned home, but something harmful is undermining my work from the shadows. She watched the woman walk by and continued, That's the woman I told you about. She's a midwife who specializes in abortions, which is of course illegal. Even though I want to deny it as much as possible, Ophelia is useful. She gave us all the pieces of this puzzle. Erica exclaimed upon hearing this. Yes, miss. The woman who just walked by is named Kruger. Alicia quickly exclaimed, Mrs. Kruger. Upon hearing this, the woman looked back blankly, thinking, Who are you? But I'm not worried, because the young lady of the Melfont family is someone who can accomplish anything. Beside him, Antoinette rustled, and Norman continued, writing his heartfelt letter. I look forward to the day we meet again. Seeing this, he suddenly stopped, dumbfounded, thinking, Why are these feathers suddenly falling? Immediately afterward, Norman sneezed loudly. After sneezing, Norman suddenly realized that the letter hadn't even been sent yet. Just then, Nicholas approached from behind and said, You sneezed again. He looked at Antoinette, thinking, Should we let this little leopard out? After saying this, he glanced at Antoinette and fell silent. Seeing its pouting face, Nicholas thought it reminded him of someone. Norman looked up and said, Little leopard. Nicholas glanced at him in surprise and asked, Can't you tell? Then he began to describe it. Strong legs, claws as sharp as knives. It's definitely a leopard. Norman looked at Antoinette and said listlessly, It doesn't look any different from a cat. I want to keep it by my side for now. Then Norman coaxed gently, Don't worry, Antoinette, I won't let him put you outside. Nicholas said in surprise, You named it Antoinette. Cerberus or Medusa will be more fitting. After saying this, Nicholas paused, then continued, Anyway, I came to tell you that I've been summoned to Bardeth. You just got back, and I really don't want to leave you alone. Hearing this, Norman didn't say anything, but just kept staring at him afterward. Norman smiled proudly. My brother is now serving the goddess. I'm so proud of you, Nicholas. Nicholas suddenly asked, Are you planning to return to the Knight's Order, Norman? He sighed and calmly replied, It's no use. The Knight's Order already has a commander, and a very capable one at that. Hearing this, Nicholas clenched his fists and said, There must be something you can do. I'll find a position for you. Norman, still holding Antoinette, frankly replied, Prioritize your own duties. Remember, Nyx must remain sealed forever, otherwise everyone will be affected. That is the commander's true mission. Hearing this, Nicholas gritted his teeth and said angrily, Whenever I remember how that bastard tormented you, Norman also thought sadly, He only locked me in a prison where time stood still. I suppose I was relatively lucky. But I can't say that to others. Many people died in that prison, sacrificed in blasphemous rituals. Regardless, Nyx must answer for his crimes. At this point, Norman thought sadly, I wasn't the only one saved by Miss Alicia. Countless people owe her their lives. If she hadn't intervened, Nyx would have slaughtered everyone. He looked down at the ground, murmuring to it, I was just one of them. Nicholas heard this and asked absent-mindedly, Are you referring to Alicia Melfont? He looked on with an inquiring gaze and continued, A letter bearing the Melfont family seal, just arrived. Alicia said she didn't get a chance to thank you properly, so those people are on their way to our mansion to express their gratitude. Upon hearing this, Norman unexpectedly jumped up. His cheeks flushed as he softly called out, "Miss Alicia, is she coming here?" He was stunned, hugging Antoinette tightly, and turned to Nicholas, asking, "Miss Alicia is coming here." As soon as he finished speaking, his face froze, standing there completely red. Seeing this, Nicholas put his hands on his hips and asked, "Why are you so surprised? Is there something wrong?" Norman shyly replied, "Well, I owe her a lot." Nicholas continued, "She's the guild master of Rondak, and everyone wishes she could make an appearance." After saying this, he observed him and asked with concern, "Norman, are you sure you're all right?" "Seasonal allergies," Norman replied, waving his hand. "I'm fine, just a little itchy nose." Seeing this awkward scene, Nicholas thoughtfully stroked his chin, then summarized with a fatal sentence, "You're a bit different from what I remember." Hearing this, Norman was disappointed and timidly asked, "Are you disappointed? But I still look the same." Nicholas patted his shoulder kindly and replied, "I didn't mean it that way. Actually, I really like how you are now. It feels like I'm getting to know the real you." Hearing this, his eyes filled with love, emotion, and hope. Just then a knock came. "It's time, sir." Nicholas frankly replied, "All right." Then Nicholas stood up and walked out step by step. He frankly made a request. "Ophelia is in your hands, Jack." He nodded in acceptance. Norman stood with his arms crossed, smiling happily. He cheerfully reminded, "Take care, Nicholas. We'll talk more when you get back." Nicholas nodded and smiled. The scene shifted outside, with flags fluttering high in the wind. Carriages rattled along the road. Norman put his hand on the window, looking out sadly, and exclaimed, "They're here. Miss Alicia must be in one of those carriages." Suddenly, there was a rustling sound behind him. A young man suddenly appeared, saying, "Please allow me to greet you, sir." He confidently introduced himself loudly. "My name is Finn Vines, and from today onwards, I will be your bodyguard." Hearing this, Norman pondered the connection and exclaimed, the Vines brothers. The eldest, Morton, the second, Jack, and the youngest is Finn. Norman extended his hand and said gently, "I'll take care of you, Finn." This made Finn exclaim in bewilderment. He replied, somewhat bewildered, "Thank you, sir. It's a great honor." Norman and Finn shook hands warmly at their first meeting. He also took this opportunity to remind him of a few things, but remember to knock before entering next time. Finn reacted immediately, quickly lowering his head and replying, "I'm sorry, I won't do it again." Norman continued to ask gently, "How is my friend Morton doing? I heard your brother Jack has been serving the knights for quite some time now." Finn frankly and fully replied, "Morton is in charge of protecting the entire mansion, while Jack is Lord Nicholas's bodyguard." Hearing this, his eyes drooped. It was a little sad to think that the mere mention of his brother's names caused him to panic. It wasn't surprising. Morton had been very strict back then. Suddenly, Norman asked a somewhat irrelevant question. "Finn, are you fast?" He hesitated. Faced with this question, Finn was a little worried, thinking, how can I tell him I'm the slowest runner in the family? He'll be disappointed. He thought dejectedly, then confidently patted his chest and replied, "Sir, I'm better with a sword than running. I'm ready to serve you with my sword at any time." Just then, the window opened slightly. He walked to the window, looked at Finn, and said gently, "I have to test you, right?" Seeing this, he couldn't help but be surprised. Finn exclaimed in surprise, Seeing Norman jump out of the window, Finn quickly rushed over and shouted, "Wait." He walked to the window in astonishment and exclaimed, "I didn't expect my first day on the job to be like this." Seeing Norman fall like that, Finn panicked and said, "What should I do?" Norman, affected by Earth's gravity, continued to fall. He also muttered to himself, "Sometimes Miss Alicia seems a bit cold, but in the end, she's always right." Thanks to her guidance, I was able to get back on track. Fortunately, and strangely, he landed safely. Norman stood there, panting, thinking, she shouldn't be thanking me. On the contrary, I'm the one who should be thanking her. At this moment, Finn, as if he had a rocket attached to his backside, dashed like a machine to where he was. Finn panted and shouted, "Lord Nicholas gave me the task of protecting you. You must let me protect you." Norman walked away just like that, saying as he went, "She's not here." Finn stood there, panting, unsure of what was going on. He smiled as he looked ahead and replied, "The guildmaster." Finn, exhausted, muttered to himself loudly, "Why is she here? Weren't they only authorized to deliver gifts to us?" Norman covered his face with his hands sadly and replied, "You're right. There's no reason for her to come here." Nicholas must have been joking, but I was really looking forward to it. Now I'm sure my feelings have nothing to do with gratitude. Finn said in surprise, sir. He walked over, murmuring thoughtfully, I just wanted to see Alicia again. Please say that again. I don't quite understand. Norman gently placed his hand on his chest, thinking His heart pounded a few times, and the thought in his heart slipped out, I've fallen in love with Miss Alicia. Elsewhere, Erica stood in the mansion, whispering, This is far too generous, my lady. The Lord, Norman escorted you all the way to Catham, but that's only natural since you helped him in the first place. Hearing this, Alicia casually asked, Are you talking about when I pulled him out of the water? Well, you're absolutely right. She glanced aside and continued. After all, Ophelia's power would never have been activated if I hadn't wanted it to. Yes, that's the real reason I was able to escape Tantris. But I was so exhausted at the time, if it weren't for his help, I'm afraid I wouldn't have been able to set foot in Catham at all. Erica hesitated after hearing this. My lady, the problem isn't about who did what, but rather. She nodded in agreement. Yes, I'm not being as petty as usual today. Erica carefully said, If you're hiding something from me. Alicia fell silent after hearing this, saying nothing more. Later, she frankly questioned, You're trying to suppress the rumors between me and Lord Norman, aren't you? But those rumors, Erica, they'll always find a way to spread regardless. They spread too fast to control. I know you're worried about me, but my skin is thick enough not to be intimidated by those baseless rumors anymore. Alicia paused her writing, her grip tightening on the pen as she continued. On the contrary, what bothers me is that the rumors about the murderous bastard Nyx and Miss Alicia Melfont making a secret deal at Tantris. Hearing this, Erica immediately denied, even if someone were to instigate them, they're just meaningless rumors. Everyone knows now that Alicia Melfont, suspected of devil worship, escaped Tantris in the arms of the brave knight Lord Normandius, and has expressed her deep gratitude by sending carriage after carriage to his mansion in return. Erica bit her nails thoughtfully for a moment, then continued, That should put a stop to the rumors immediately. Alicia, sitting opposite her, also nodded in approval. Exactly, and Alicia Melfont never loses a gamble. After saying this, she glanced subtly to the side, where a pot of vibrant purple Teresa flowers sat. Suddenly, the image of Norman holding a garland woven from Teresa flowers flashed through Alicia's mind. Thinking of that scene, a blush crept onto her cheeks. She turned her face away involuntarily, thinking, Don't be so sentimental. But Alicia's heart was still racing, and she thought, I'm just protecting my reputation in the best way possible. The scene shifted to Norman, standing outside as the wind howled past, his gaze fixed on the sky, as if holding many unspoken words. Suddenly, he turned around and said softly, I won't be alone. Finn sternly refused. I'm sorry, sir, but I must obey my orders and protect you from all danger. He gently placed his hand on the wall and asked, Why is Iago still lurking around here? Norman smiled gently and shook his head. He's not, so you don't have to worry anymore. I really need some time to myself tonight. If you respect me, please respect my wishes. Seeing his expression, Finn was suddenly stunned, standing still for a few seconds, his hands trembling as they clenched. He turned around decisively and said, I'll return to the barracks for night training. Certainly not because you asked me to. Seeing this, Norman smiled with satisfaction. Good. Then, he stood in the lonely darkness, quietly suppressing his emotions. Norman seemed to hear a strange sound. He looked around, a series of questions rising in his mind. Norman slowly walked down the stairs, step by step. He walked quietly alone down the dark staircase, and when he reached the bottom, he was somewhat dumbfounded, his mouth agape in surprise. Before him was a brilliant garden of Teresa flowers, their petals dancing elegantly in the wind. He recalled Alicia's words from earlier as she watched the fluttering petals. Those are my favorite flowers. He walked over and gently plucked one, thinking, Miss Alicia said they're hard to find around here. Norman plucked a flower, pondering, but why is there a whole field of them here? Suddenly, a noise startled him, and he turned to look. When he saw it was Finn, Norman sighed uncomfortably and replied, Can't you just leave me alone? He also said awkwardly, I apologize, sir, but this area of the castle isn't frequented. It's best not to enter. Norman walked past Finn, who still insisted, It's my duty, I can't. Then he reached out, took a small sword from Finn's pocket, and swung it forward forcefully. Finn squeezed his eyes shut in fear, then opened them again, curiosity overcoming him. Norman looked towards a dark corner and called out, Who's there? "What are you doing here?" A figure slowly emerged, gently removing their cloak and hood. Then the person spoke, Lord Normandius. It was Ophelia, and she replied with a cheerful smile, "We finally meet." She walked towards Norman, happily saying, "We finally meet." When Finn saw that it was Ophelia, he couldn't hide his joy and exclaimed, "Miss Ophelia, I never thought I'd see you here." Hearing this, Norman froze. He remembered Nicholas's words, that without Ophelia's help during his 10-year absence, he wouldn't have survived. Realizing it was Ophelia, Norman blushed and replied carefully, politely, and gently, "I'm sorry, I didn't recognize you at first. Nicholas has told me a lot about you." "The honor is mine," she replied with a smile. "It's an honor for me as well." Then Ophelia pulled up her hood, hesitantly saying, "My apologies for the hood. I mean no offense, but a woman on the run can't show her face." Suddenly, he noticed a strange glow emanating from the tip of Ophelia's index finger. Norman was stunned, his eyes widening in surprise. He walked over and asked softly, "Were you the one who planted the Teresa flowers here?" Ophelia's eyes sparkled, and she exclaimed in surprise, "Oh, you know the name of these flowers." Norman began to tell the story. "A girl used to sell these flowers in Catham Square. I heard that Teresa flowers are wildflowers that only grow in the western regions and are usually used by fortune tellers. However, there are few people." A familiar image flashed through Ophelia's mind. Then Norman continued gently, "that who use them to make beautiful garlands." Hearing this, Ophelia's tears flowed. She gently wiped them away and said, "It seems we have much to talk about." Looking at the Teresa flowers on the ground, she continued, "If you're willing to listen to my story." Time flashed back to about 10 years ago. Ophelia lay unconscious on the ground. Someone walked over, saw the scene, and said, "Wait, that's Ophelia, the woman on Romdax's wanted list. Your brother, Nicholas, found me collapsed in the middle of the road." Suddenly, someone rushed over and grabbed Ophelia's hand tightly. It was Nicholas, Ophelia recalled. He frowned and sternly demanded, "Do as I say, or you'll spend the rest of your life in prison. You see, I'm a survivor of the Melfont estate massacre orchestrated by Nyx." Nicholas believed that both the curse on his brother and the dark forces that destroyed the Melfont family originated from the same source. In short, I was a useful piece of evidence for him to uncover the truth. Just then, one of Nyx's subordinates walked by and said, "The path of the dark god Arpho will lead your souls into the deepest hell, preacher." Hearing this familiar and terrifying voice, Ophelia cried out in alarm, "Nyx's hound." Without hesitation, she grabbed a rope and pulled Nicholas down. He was startled, while Ophelia dragged him along as she fled. When Nicholas realized this, he was taken aback. "So, we have a common enemy." Recognizing this coincidence, the corners of Nicholas's mouth curled up slightly. He slowly approached Ophelia. This marked the beginning of a decade-long camaraderie between the hunter and the preacher. Now, Norman and Finn sat quietly, listening to Ophelia tell her story. After listening, Finn exclaimed in surprise, "I thought this was a love story." Norman just chuckled and replied, "It sounded more like an adventure story." Then he calmly asked, "May I ask, what motivated you to sacrifice yourself to hunt down Nyx's preachers all these years?" This made Ophelia fall silent for a moment, her eyes downcast with immense sadness. Fidgeting and clasping her hands tightly, Ophelia replied, "It was because of her. To atone for everything she went through because of me." He also recalled Nicholas's words, Alicia Melfont, in Ophelia's 10 years of life. Only this name has influenced her. Realizing this, Norman wasn't very pleased. He softly asked, "Did you used to make garland for her too?" Ophelia simply nodded slightly in response. She also sincerely added, "I hunt Nyx's preachers for 2 reasons. First, to expose the true culprit and openly fight against those villains. Second, for Alicia's safety." Hearing this, Norman glanced at the Teresa flowers and nodded, thinking to himself, "Every single flower here must be a prayer for her best friend." Hearing these encouraging words, Ophelia felt a sense of warmth in her heart. Looking at the Teresa flowers, Ophelia said with deep emotion, "People believe that if Teresa flowers don't wither within 7 days, they'll bring good luck. I planted these flowers here, hoping that good luck will bless Alicia's future." Norman, sitting beside her, was still puzzled. "She put a bounty on your head. Aren't you angry with her?" She shook her head and replied, "Not really." Gently stroking the Teresa flowers, she softly said, "I no longer hold any expectations of her." Norman thought, surprised, this meant Alicia knew. She knew Miss Alicia had no choice. He saw Ophelia snap the stem of a Teresa flower. She gently lifted it as if to offer it to him. Norman accepted the flower. He looked at it for a moment and said, "I thought you wanted to keep them alive for as long as possible." Ophelia replied with a bright smile, "Fortune is a generous gift, Lord Norman. I offer you this gift of fortune, hoping you will share it with others." Hearing this, Norman was a little perplexed, but a blush crept onto his cheeks for some reason. At the foot of the castle stairs, a silent sentiment quietly bloomed. Clutching the flower tightly, masking the secret emotions he tried to hide, he replied, "I certainly will, for fortune is a generous gift." The scene changed the next day, Melfont estate. Laughter echoed. "Ha!" Alicia held a letter, excitedly saying, "Erica, look at this." She took it and read a letter from Nicholas Diaz. Seeing the contents, Erica was stunned, her expression blank, unsure what to say. The Diaz family owes her a great debt for this invaluable help. I wish to convey that this debt will be repaid in the most deserving manner. After reading it, Alicia burst into laughter, saying, "Ha, he says he owes her a great debt." Erica felt something was amiss. Is this really the Nicholas Diaz we know? Alicia wiped away her tears of laughter and nodded firmly. "Yes, it's Nicholas Diaz." Alicia, regaining her usual composure, continued, "The prisoner's solitary confinement is a heavy burden on the imperial treasury. Immediate execution will help reduce unnecessary expenses." Suddenly, a hand was calmly raised in front of her. It was Nicholas. He said firmly and seriously, "I object." Seeing this, Alicia thought angrily, that thorn in my side again, always getting in my way. At every council meeting, even the last one before Founders Day, without exception. Then, an arrogant man stepped in front of Alicia and said, "You've had a bounty on the fugitive Ophelia for a long time, but she's still at large. You don't want to catch her at all, do you? Don't you care that she might put the entire aristocracy in danger?" She frowned angrily and asked what. Alicia gritted her teeth and replied angrily, "Just you wait until she's imprisoned before me." Just then, Nicholas walked over, frowning, and sternly accused, "That's incredibly rude, Miss Melfont." He clicked his tongue and asked, "Are you a lady of noble birth or a fishmonger in the marketplace?" TSK. Alicia's face stiffened with anger, her throat tightening. "Did you just call me a fishmonger?" Then she roared like an enraged lioness. "Say that again." "Miss, please calm down." At this moment, Erica stood silently to the side, lost in thought. From the taunt, "You're too short for my liking," to the multiple accidents between wine glasses and dresses, Alicia smiled bitterly and uncomfortably. The many conflicts, clearly all intentional. Erica seemed to understand now and asked, so, to express his infinite gratitude, that arrogant man finally received his deserved punishment. "What a great victory, my lady." Alicia nodded in response. "Indeed." Then, Erica noticed something hidden behind the letter. Erica took it out and showed it to Alicia. "There's another letter." Alicia quickly opened it and then gasped. "It's a Teresa flower." It said that if a Teresa flower blooms for a week, it will bring good luck. She was more than familiar with this saying, wasn't she? The affectionate image of Norman holding a Teresa flower flashed through her mind. "I certainly will." Imagine my surprise when I saw a field full of them. Back at the mansion, Ophelia also wept with joy. She believed that because fortune is a generous gift, they were waiting for me in a secluded spot at the castle. So beautiful. Norman happily placed the Teresa flower in a vase, exclaiming, "It hasn't withered." I gave her a Teresa flower that I'd kept alive for 7 days. If the legend about this flower is true, then we are sure to meet again. For that will be the fortunate day I've been waiting for. With deepest affection, Norman Diaz. Seeing Alicia engrossed in reading, Erica called out to her curiously. "My lady." Alicia, holding the letter, said, "It seems there's a field of Teresa flowers at the Diaz estate." Erica asked in surprise, "A field of Teresa flowers?" Alicia nodded sadly, confirming, "Yes," which means Ophelia is hiding there. She sighed and continued, "Do you think, one day, fortune will smile upon me?" Erica nodded and replied, "It certainly will, my lady." She looked up affectionately and repeated, "It certainly will." Just then, there was a knock at the door. Alicia commanded, "Come in." The door opened, and the person who entered stunned both her and Erica. The door had been open for a while, but the other party remained silent. Annoyed by the sluggishness, Alicia complained, "You're wasting time. What's wrong?" The person stammered in fear. "Miss," he lowered his head, bowing hurriedly to report. Lord Philip Morefolk returned the engagement ring. Hearing this, Alicia's spirits lifted, the corners of her mouth curving upward slightly. She chuckled slyly. "Luck may smile, but it never smiles on me." Erica cried out in fear. Mississippi Alicia clenched her fists. "Well, then I have to see the ring first." Her expression turned menacing. "If it's not the one I bought, he'll pay the price." Norman gently stroked Antoinette, who was perched on his knee, but his thoughts seemed captivated by the setting sun outside the window. Unknown thoughts seemed to disturb his heart, and an indescribable sadness flickered in his golden eyes. This melancholic image of the handsome man fell upon Finn's eyes, as if viewed through 100 filters. He couldn't help but inwardly comment, "If he keeps playing the caged bird like this, he'll really wear himself out." Just then, Norman spoke, "Don't worry, Finn." This startled him, making him think his inner commentary had been discovered. Unaware of Finn's reaction, Norman slowly continued, "I don't blame you. I know you're here on my father's orders." The burden on his shoulders suddenly lifted. Finn couldn't help but scratch his head and laugh happily. What a relief. "Thank you for your understanding, sir." Before his joy could last more than 3 seconds, Norman spoke again, as if to extinguish his happiness. But he looked up at Finn, his eyes filled with reproach. "I don't understand why you won't let me go out for a walk. You're the one in charge here, aren't you?" Norman continued his unfinished words gently. "You're too nervous. Not at all like your brother, Morton." Whether intentional or not, every word was like the sharpest knife, stabbing the youngest member of the household. Finn even heard a muffled bang in his ears. He just compared me to his brother. No matter how broken his heart was, he had to complete the task of appeasement first. "Yes, I was indeed ordered to imprison." "Ah, no, protect you. But nothing can stop me from bringing you news from the outside." Norman didn't pursue the previous question, but calmly followed Finn's words. "Well, you've made me curious." But Finn didn't reveal anything immediately. Instead, he began to look around, as if afraid someone was eavesdropping on their conversation in the corner. After observing everything, he leaned close to Norman's ear and whispered, "Your father's going to visit the Melfort estate tomorrow." Then, Finn lowered his voice even further, revealing the most important information he wanted to convey. "Because of this trip, he will be away for a while, and you can finally..." The sentence was meaningfully left unfinished, but it was enough to make Norman's eyes widen. Then he sat up straight and asked back, "Where is he going?" This unrestrained tone frightened Finn out of his wits. He panicked, his eyes watering, his hands trembling, and his voice choked with sobs, saying pitifully, "Please keep your voice down. I wasn't supposed to tell you this." Norman didn't seem to understand the implication and continued to repeat the question he wanted to know. "So, why is my father visiting the Melfort family?" Finn hesitated, unsure whether to answer. Meanwhile, in the luxurious space of the mansion, a confident voice summarized the current situation. "Miss Melfort expressed her gratitude for my son's invaluable assistance, which allowed her to escape Tantaros." Milan, the former head of the Diaz family, frowned slightly, seemingly disagreeing with this conclusion, but Norman was merely fulfilling a knight's predetermined duty. Morton listened silently to his one-sided statement. "Therefore, we still owe her a favor, for she brought my eldest son home." In the depths of his golden eyes, an undeniable determination shone. "This is a debt we must repay." Back in the quiet room, Norman quietly watched the scenery bathe in burnt orange, his slender hand gently stroking Antoinette's head, his calm voice betraying none of his inner emotions. "They should know." Then he turned to Finn with a bright smile and said with certainty, "That's a debt I must repay." With a click, the box was finally opened, but the contents made Alicia frown in confusion. The small and extremely ordinary piece of jewelry lay quietly there, as if mocking the outsider's mood. This ring. She picked up the box with a hint of amusement, unsure whether to curse him as a scumbag or a freeloader. Just then, the servant standing beside her also softly reported. Lord Philip said, "There's no reason to return gifts that have already been given to his family and friends." This absurd reason made Alicia even more contemptuous, so he kept all my gold and silver jewelry. Truly, there's no harm without comparison. He actually only returned the ring. What's worse, all these insults pointed to one purpose: to break off the engagement. Erica frowned, picking up the stack of documents that came with it. "Let's see what kind of nonsense he's written." But but with just a glance at the messy handwriting, she trembled with rage. That treacherous man. Seeing her extreme reaction, Erica worriedly asked what was wrong. Alicia forced herself to stay calm and recounted the gist of the letter. He'd used the rumors between Nyx and herself as an excuse, and with just a few short sentences, Alicia was already burning with fury. What? She could hardly believe her eyes and hurried over to read it carefully. Let me see. Every word on the letter stung her eyes. My dearest Alicia, I am overjoyed to hear of your safe return. Knowing you are back where you belong fills me with immense relief. Only, the situation on the sender's side was completely different from what the letter described. Haha. The supposedly heartbroken fiancé in the letter was currently shaking a dice cup in one hand while holding a beautiful woman in the other. Yet, this letter, addressed to Alicia, who carried the weight of the Melfort family on her shoulders, juxtaposed with the image of the just rolled dice, created an utterly absurd scene. He was treating the girl who once loved him deeply like a game of dice. I cannot turn a blind eye to the depraved rumors circulating between the heretical priest and my fiancé. And at this moment, Alicia's fiancé, Philip Morfolk, was sighing regretfully. Myra's breasts, I almost touched them. The evidence and rumors listed in the letter painted him as an innocent and utterly holy man. When I was informed that my Alicia was spending day and night with a healthy young man in the countryside, flirting and carrying on, if someone didn't know the truth based on these words alone, they might shed tears of sympathy for Philip. That I was deeply troubled and worried for the chastity she promised. They wouldn't know that the seemingly betrayed man was currently captivated by a beautiful figure. Oh, not only that, but he was also whispering sweet nothings to another. You are here, Petra, my love. The girl in the alluring red dress was none other than the opera singer Petra Landry, Philip's lover. The bright, familiar smile she gave Philip was enough to indict him based on the words in his letter. Although Loven's law had clear stipulations regarding the betrayal of one's betrothed, the ridiculous part was that the perpetrator was trying to exploit a non-existent leniency towards the innocent. I no longer harbor feelings for her, and instead wish to prevent all of this by canceling our engagement. Alicia was furious after reading it. A scoundrel paired with a harlot. Only, Philip didn't know that his actions hadn't hurt her in the slightest. He wanted to end things. I couldn't be happier. At this thought, she suddenly paused. All the information about Philip resurfaced in Alicia's mind. But I really can't find anyone else like him. There's no other useless nobleman who can be my husband without affecting Alfred's inheritance. But Erica didn't think so. Even for a fool like Philip, this is too reckless. He wants to settle things with you less than a week after your return. There must be something else behind this. Her words reminded Alicia of something. She vaguely remembered the letter she had received not long ago. Just like Ophelia had said, all of this had happened within a week. A familiar figure flashed through her mind, and a plan gradually formed. She must have anticipated this. If so, I can use her to my advantage. Alicia didn't say much, only clench her fist and ordered, you know what to do. Go and prepare. As expected of her personal secretary, Erica immediately understood her mistress's intentions and quickly replied, yes, Mississippi. Then the two continued on their way. Suddenly, a commotion in the distance caught Alicia's attention. What's going on? Someone noticed her arrival and immediately ran over to report the situation. It's a guest, Mississippi. You want to see him. The unusual appellation surprised Alicia. Him, for her. Only one man deserved that title. The familiar platinum blonde hair flashed before her eyes, bringing a blush to her cheeks. Could it be? Before Alicia could fully rejoice, a sharp voice accompanied by the rude slamming of a door rang out. Since when did I become a guest in my own mansion? The newly arrived figure made Alicia freeze. What are you doing here? The handsome but slightly stern boy stood at the doorway, not answering her question. Alfred. Alfred repeated his question somewhat angrily. Since when did I become a guest in my own mansion? Just then, another person rushed over. Young master. Then she turned to the previous servant and scolded him sternly. How dare you mistake him for a guest? How foolish. It was Seymour, Alicia, and Alfred's nanny. Not only that, but she also dragged the innocent secretary into the fray. And Erica too. The two began to bicker. Seymour angrily questioned the age-old problem. How long are you planning to keep the young master locked up in that asylum? Erica, caught in the crossfire, wearily explained, I'm busy. I don't have the leisure to sit around doing nothing. Alicia didn't want to be drawn into the argument, so she quickly turned to Alfred and explained, Dear, don't mind them. They're just surprised to see you back after so long. No one will treat you as a guest in your own home. You are the rightful owner of the Melfort family. However, the boy's next reply surprised her greatly. That's only what you want, Miss Alicia. You've never cared whether I want to be the master of this house. It would be difficult for anyone so young to possess such mature thoughts, but Alfred wasn't an ordinary child. The boy decisively turned and left, leaving behind only a firm statement. I don't want it. This is your life, so I can't just take it away from you. That cold judgment and attitude hit Alicia like a blow. Bang! That night, she tossed and turned, unable to sleep. This boy is no longer the little Alfred I knew. The more she thought about it, the more exhausted she felt. Sigh, this child has grown up in a way I didn't want at all. In contrast to Alicia's melancholic situation was the image of the happy couple together, if his parents were still alive. Then came Alfred's carefree, smiling face, the boy living as he should at his age. The way things had turned out was more than Alicia could bear. Everything came flooding back, and the result was truly awful. Burying her face deep in her pillow, she sobbed silently. I'm so sorry, both of you. I've ruined this child. Just as her emotions were overflowing, a knock suddenly came from outside the room. Knock, knock. May I come in? Mississippi Alicia sat up in a panic. Wait. She reached out and wiped away the remaining tears on her eyelashes, comforting herself inwardly. It's okay. It's nothing. After confirming that she had regained her strong composure, she solemnly commanded, come in. The heavy bedroom door opened with a click, but the person who appeared at the door surprised her. It was Seymour, but what caught Alicia's attention was the tray in her hands. What's that? Seymour didn't say a word, just focused on the task at hand. A soft cloth was dipped in water and then wrung to a certain dampness. Then, Seymour approached and gently wiped Alicia's eyes. You don't want to wake up with swollen eyes tomorrow, do you? This will help. Alicia smiled and took the towel, placing it over her eyes, not bothering to hide anything. You see right through me. Seymour replied with a smile, of course. I raised you. Then she mentioned the morning's incident, which she had witnessed despite being busy arguing with Erica. Young Master Alfred must have upset you. Alicia turned up the corners of her lips, wanting to reassure the other woman, as if also comforting herself. It's okay. He's just going through a rebellious phase. Of course, her emotions didn't escape Seymour's eyes, but she didn't expose them, only looking at her with loving eyes. After a moment of silence, she decided to tell Alicia something. After you disappeared, we took young Master Alfred to another refuge, and during that time, she spoke, and based on Seymour's description, the boy's appearance came to mind. He was still trying to act strong then, but the tears in his eyes betrayed his true feelings. If Miss Alicia is dead, what's the point of doing all this? Seymour continued to softly analyze everything. He knew he had to fulfill his duties as the Melfort heir, but honestly, nothing made him happier than being with his aunt. Alicia listened, unable to contain her emotions. Finally, her just dried eyes became moist again. She pursed her lips and placed the towel over her eyes, her mind still focused on Seymour's words. You don't know how relieved we were when you returned to us safely. Every word flowed through Alicia's heart like a warm current, successfully causing her to bury her head and sob again. She no longer bothered to restrain herself, burying her head in Seymour's arms and crying loudly. It's been so long, I've gradually forgotten what's truly important. Deep down, Alicia remembered a truth. I thought I was the only one protecting the people I love. Seymour gently held her, patting her back. Thoughts still swirled in her mind, but they were as warm as the nanny's embrace. I didn't realize that they were the ones who kept the flame of hope alive for me. After a long while, Seymour gently released her hold and looked at the girl before her. You must be very tired. Unknowingly, Alicia had fallen asleep with swollen red eyes. Seymour gently picked up the blanket and covered her. The surrounding space was unusually quiet, and, at the same time, something else happened. As I fell asleep, Ophelia's night came again. This situation was like a drop of water falling into memory, this time to let me know of a past I had never heard of. A man's worried gaze appeared. It was Alicia's father. Beside him was Idio, the clergyman from the Melford Manor Chapel. Lord Melford turned, worry etched on his face, and asked the nanny, "How is my daughter?" Seymour hesitated, lowering her head. "My lord," she began then, in the gentlest voice possible, so as not to upset him further, continued, "Miss Alicia falls ill like this every year, but never this severely. She's lost consciousness." 5-year-old Alicia Melford lay in bed, seemingly moaning in agony. Lord Melford's eyes were filled with sorrow. It pains me to see Alicia like this, but I can't allow a girl whose name I don't even know to treat my daughter." He turned coldly and walked away, leaving only a single command: make sure that girl is returned to where she came from. But then Oilia spoke up hurriedly. "My lord, this girl possesses an unimaginable holy power." He firmly assured Lord Melfort, "Sharing a little with your daughter won't be dangerous." Then Oilia reiterated, "Let the girl do what she is meant to do." These words seemed like a signal to Ophelia, who quickly darted in front of Lord Melfort. She walked straight to Alicia's bedside, but Ophelia didn't rush to touch her. Instead, she stood quietly by the bed, observing the small face contorted in pain. Unable to contain her emotions, tears welled up in her eyes. "Please don't die, little flower of Teresa." Then Ophelia reached out her small hand, and suddenly a strange golden light flashed from it. "You won't wither, you will bloom again." Her childish voice echoed in the room like a newly budding flower. As soon as the words left her lips, a powerful force enveloped the two little girls. A sudden gust of wind swept through the room. Whoosh, and what followed caused Seymour to excitedly cover her mouth. Incredibly, Alicia's breathing gradually steadied, and her complexion improved. Mrs. back to normal. At that moment, Alicia remembered, even before Nyx's curse fell upon the family, Ophelia saved me. The next morning, the 5-year-old girl groggily opened her eyes. A familiar yet unfamiliar face appeared. She had been taken in by the Melfort family for the sake of keeping me alive. Ophelia, seeing her awake, smiled brightly, seemingly unaware of why she was in such luxurious surroundings. 5-year-old Alicia stared in surprise at her peer, the intensity of her gaze making Ophelia fidget, her hands clasped tightly together. Unexpectedly, a second later, Alicia reached out and took Ophelia's hand. Then, looking at her with sparkling eyes, she asked like a cuddly kitten, "What's your name?" Whether it was the look in Alicia's eyes or the intimate touch, Ophelia immediately panicked, her whole body flushing red like a boiled shrimp. Then, shyly, she answered the question, I don't have a name." Without a second thought, Alicia casually said, "Then your name will be Ophelia." The simple words made her blue eyes sparkle with happiness. Then Alicia leaned in closer, as if to confirm the other girl's opinion. "From now on, I'll call you Ophelia, okay?" But after waiting a long time for a reply, she instead invited her to do something else. "Come on, let's play." The rapid progression of events left Ophelia unable to react, her heart pounding in her chest. Thump, thump, thump. She shifted nervously, her bright eyes glancing towards Lord Melfort. He looked somewhat helpless, unsure of what to do, but ultimately yielded to the two children's wishes. "If you wish, you may stay." And so, Ophelia, the saint is found in the forest, stayed. This permission made Ophelia beam, tears of happiness welling up in her eyes as she was brought into a noble family, forming a friendship orchestrated by the clergy. From this moment on, she was considered a new member of the Melfort family, her mission to sustain her sister's life. Fortunately, the two children got along well. The memory shifted again, this time to pouring rain. Splash, perhaps I deceived myself for so long. The figure Alicia had resented for years also appeared. Nyx came to the Melfort family 10 years ago, fascinated by Ophelia's power. Nyx glanced nonchalantly at Alicia lying on the ground, then asked suspiciously, "Are you alone here?" "That's strange. I swear she was hiding nearby." Suddenly, a call came, "Alicia." It startled him, his eyes widening. Along with Ophelia's anxious voice, "Alicia, where are you? Answer me." Nyx's gaze fell upon Alicia's swollen ankle. In that moment, a sickening plan formed in his mind, causing a smirk to spread across his lips. And he, naturally, saved my life. The person running in the rain, Ophelia, wasn't wrong. She was looking for her sister. Suddenly, a dazzling light flashed beside her, catching her attention. The sight of Nyx kneeling beside Alicia, his body radiating healing power, filled Ophelia's vision. That was also the beginning of everything. If she had to bear the responsibility, even in the memory, Alicia couldn't help but sigh, simply because she was too naive, seeing a childish reflection of herself in Nyx, and hoping he would help me. If that novel had found me sooner, Alicia wouldn't have so many regrets. At that moment, Ophelia clenched her fists, her resolve hardening. Alicia, I want to protect you until the very end. This choice wasn't unexpected. Yes, she always took responsibility upon herself. Ophelia extended her hand to Nyx, suggesting, why don't you come with us? She didn't know that this action was the very beginning of a series of tragedies. It was like offering a mouse to a cat. Of course, he wouldn't refuse, and nothing could stop Nyx's mad infatuation with her. At that time, Alicia muttered in a panic no. Immense regret filled her heart. Even if the novel had come to me sooner. Her past self was so scared that hot tears welled up. Don't take his hand, Ophelia. But no matter how things unfolded, she could never change the past. She screamed in anguish within her heart. No. Alicia abruptly awoke to the familiar ceiling of the mansion. Her face was drained of color, tears streamed down her cheeks, and her breath came in ragged gasps. Panting, she struggled to compose herself, her mind racing. It's a vision of the past. Can't that disgusting book just leave me alone? Then she got out of bed, as if heading somewhere. What is it trying to say? What do you want from me? Alicia went straight to the balcony, the glass door opening with a soft click. As her hand touched the cold stone, her thoughts cleared completely. Wait, the passing breeze ruffled her hair, and at the same time, a bold guess surfaced. Maybe I'm not the only one being tormented. Ophelia is too. Alicia quickly grasped this information. It always invades my dreams without warning. Every detail began to connect, helping her get closer to the truth. Maybe what that book did to me. Finally, she reached a conclusion that surprised even Alicia herself. It did to her as well. Erica was walking towards the mansion when she saw a familiar figure. My lady. She rushed over and wrapped her own scarf around Alicia. It's still cold in the morning. You shouldn't be standing here. But Alicia didn't react to these words, only murmuring to herself, I shouldn't have let her leave. This strange state left Erica somewhat bewildered. My lady. Alicia lowered her head, her thoughts churning. I should have kept Ophelia and questioned her. She should have told me the truth. Indescribable emotions, a mixture of regret and self-blame, surfaced in the depths of her violet eyes. The scene from that day vividly resurfaced. Get out of Rosen's. I never want to see you again. Alicia remained frozen in place, as if unable to escape her past. Even though I knew it was wrong, I still drove her away. At this moment, her inner emotions completely erupted, because I was afraid to face the truth. Despite the damp morning air, Alicia stood silently on the balcony, consumed by self-reproach. Even though I knew it was wrong, I still drove her away. Then she confessed, because I was afraid to face the truth. This left Erica at a loss. After a moment, she softly comforted her master. Uncovering a harsh reality isn't always the best approach. Sometimes you should run away. These words were like an anchor, pulling Alicia back to reality. And every time we take a step back, we can see the parts of the picture we missed. Alicia calmed down, looked up, and said with a wry smile, have I given you too many tasks? Haven't I? Erica replied casually, I just want to say, if you choose to run away, I will never blame you. Because deep down, she also had a wish she longed to fulfill. As long as you promise to come back to us. Alicia was so moved, she almost started crying again. Erica, but before she could finish her performance, she was interrupted by a sneeze. Sniffling, she asked, I really should have listened to you and stayed inside. But why are you here so early in the morning? Then Erica solemnly announced an important matter. We have a visitor. Alicia irritably guessed, another member who needs monitoring. She quickly explained, no, my lady. This time it's the Diaz family. The name made Alicia's heart skip a beat. Diaz. She vaguely recalled a deep voice in her mind. For this invaluable assistance, the Diaz family owes you a favor. I'd like to relay a message. Her favor will be repaid in the most worthwhile manner. She couldn't believe it, asking herself inwardly, is that what he meant? Then she asked her secretary, puzzled, I thought Lord Nicholas was in charge of supervising Nyx's seal. Isn't he in Baldi's? Erica patiently confirmed the information. Yes. He's not the visitor. Alicia's thoughts raced, and after eliminating him as the visitor, a blush crept onto her cheeks. But to be sure, she still shyly asked, is it Lord Norman? Erica, knowing what she was thinking, quickly interrupted, it's his father, Lord Milan, who's coming to visit. That morning, the people in the city were stirred by the sight before them, buzzing with excitement and speculation. A large procession of carriages passed by, accompanied by the gasps and murmurs of the onlookers. Indeed, it was the most powerful lord in the capital. Just look at the size of his retinue. In another corner, Alicia adjusted her clothes while instructing her nephew. Alfred, I know you feel bad for me, but you must behave yourself this time. She pleaded with the boy reluctantly, just for a few days. Lord Milan is a very important guest, but these words made Alfred feel like his intelligence was being insulted. The boy turned his face away uncomfortably. Do you think I'm a fool? Erica, who was standing nearby, gasped softly. This is the first time I've seen Miss so nervous. Seymour asked her with a smile. Haven't you seen Lord Milan before? She replied with some concern. Who is he exactly? I mean, I know, but Seymour, understanding her feelings, slowly began to introduce Lord Normandius. As Seymour spoke, his dignified appearance seemed to materialize before their eyes. He is the only living person who influenced the founding principles of Lothens. She continued to share her knowledge with those around her. People say he is the embodiment of everything the men of the Empire strive for. According to legend, the first master of the Deus family was the lover of the goddess Mara. It's no exaggeration to say that Milan can be seen as the chosen one, his bloodline imbued with the ability to inherit divine power. Normandius is no exception. The Empire has avoided many crises thanks to his heroic deeds. Most importantly, his talent makes people adore him. Milan also contributed the family's assault mines to promote the establishment and training of the Deus family's knights. Thanks to the solid foundation he laid, the family's entire enterprise has been elevated. Now they're the most elite warriors of Lothens, and it is said that the most elite knights all come from the Deus family. Seymour continued to relay the information she knew. Recently, Milan wanted to step down from this position, but he certainly hasn't lost contact with the Empire's administration. When his son, Nicholas, was sent to resolve the Nyx issue, he immediately took responsibility for the family. Because of this, he is a prominent figure of this era. Most importantly, he is still the spokesperson for the Cathedral Council, and the Emperor trusts him greatly. According to Seymour's final assessment, Normandius was the pride of the Lothens Empire. At this moment, he had also arrived at the Melfont estate. His appearance made Erica murmur. He looks more like a stern master, an old man who holds power, right? Seymour interrupted her sternly. Watch your words, Erica. Don't make me remind you that a small mistake could ruin this meeting. Seeing that the distinguished guest had arrived, Alicia stepped forward solemnly to greet him. Welcome to Melfont Manor, sir. Milan didn't respond, only casting his gaze upon her. This attitude left Alicia stunned, unsure of what to do. Suddenly, the following development took her by surprise. Such a noble person as Milan actually knelt before her. Please forgive me for the disturbance. He lowered his head, a hint of apology on his face. However, because I'm a father, I cannot avoid this. My love for my son has brought me here personally to express my gratitude to the dear Mississippi. Alicia hurried closer, lowering herself as well, and extended her hand to him. I'm the one who should be thanking you. This gesture made Milan exclaim, You are truly too kind. Then he looked towards the carriage and continued, We have brought gift from the family mines, but compared to what you have done for us, it is so insignificant. Alicia bowed gracefully, sincerely grateful for the gesture. Thank you, sir. The Deus family is always welcome here. I hope you will make yourself at home and that you will not refuse us the honor of serving our most esteemed guest. Since she said so, Milan no longer held back. Then, if you may, could you also receive those who came with me? Alicia replied happily, Of course, your guests are our guests. As soon as she finished speaking, a slight sound suddenly came from the carriage behind. Alicia's gaze shifted in that direction, and her eyes widened in surprise. Countless thoughts surfaced. I returned for the brink of death, only to be greeted by vulgar rumors and my fiance's betrayal. The person slowly stepped down from the carriage, unaware of Alicia's thoughts. One thing after another, as if the universe wanted to see me break down. So now, what kind of mess will fate throw at me? The familiar figure she had been longing for over the past few days now truly appeared before her. Even seeing him at such close proximity, Alicia still couldn't believe it. If there's any omen to my miserable life, it's that everything will only go downhill from here. Norman smiled, hands clasped before him, politely calling her name Miss Alicia. I'm still delirious from the shock, but the truth is, Alicia Melfont is stronger than I thought. Then unconsciously, she whispered, Lord Norman. But just then, Alicia seemed to remember something. Her body suddenly stiffened, and she covered her mouth. The other person slowly approached her, as if trying to pull her from the chaotic turmoil of her thoughts. A few accusations aren't nearly enough to defeat a survivor like me. These words gave Alicia the strength to make up her mind. No matter what happens, I will survive. The goddess Mara smiled and reiterated, even if all I can change is the story. Alicia's expression remained frozen, unable to understand what was happening. The pages of a novel flipped rapidly, accompanied by Mara's steady voice, like an undeniable reminder. The rest is up to her. She whispered a cruel truth, but remember, child, what is meant to happen will continue to happen, no matter what. Suddenly, the scene changed. A sense of brutality and a piercing scream erupted. H. The killer who had just struck walked away slowly, calmly analyzing the situation with their teammate. It's number 23. The one who just escaped isn't far. Then they gave the order, we have to catch up to them quickly. These words made Jack Vines, the second son of the Vines family, standing beside them, sigh. Ugh. Then he muttered, that's not like you, Ophelia. Hearing her name, she turned around in confusion, revealing the dark red bloodstains on her face and her icy blue eyes. Jack slowly approached, announcing as he walked, all the heretics who participated in the sacrificial ritual are dead. He then consciously assessed the current situation, and we have Nyx's identity. They can't possibly. Before he could finish, Ophelia interrupted him. Jack Vines, she reminded him coldly, if you don't agree with my methods, then go back to your Diaz mansion. This attitude immediately made him flinch. I'm sorry. Ophelia didn't react, only slightly raising the weapon in her hand. I've failed too many times. Her tear-stained face was reflected in the gleaming blade. I refuse to repeat my mistakes. Ophelia turned and left hurriedly, leaving behind only a fleeting sentence. I'll go ahead. Let me know if you make a decision. Jack silently watched her retreating figure and couldn't help but sigh. I know. She becomes extremely sensitive whenever Alicia is mentioned. Melfort, he still couldn't understand. But we have Nyx, and Miss Melfort is still alive and well. What other reason is there for Ophelia to be so concerned? What made her become like this? In the distance, Ophelia gripped her sword tightly, muttering to herself, it's okay now. A familiar name suddenly echoed through the silent forest. Alicia, back at the Melfont estate. Milan asked Alicia with concern, Miss Melfort, you look a little pale. She forced a smile and retorted, haha, oh really? Then she apologized to him sheepishly. I'm sorry. I haven't been able to properly welcome such an important guest. Milan immediately reached out and interrupted, please don't be. He soothed her in a low voice. You've been through a lot. Your priority now is to recover, since our esteemed guest says so. Alicia could only give a wry smile. Haha, how can I do that? But her gaze drifted slightly in another direction. The reason I'm worried. Norman's bright smile made her heart tremble even more. That is because of your son. Alicia vaguely remembered the scene outside just now. He hasn't said a word to me since we met. She knew she was at fault. Of course, it's my fault for abandoning him with just a letter. But the current situation made her want to shout. He was so kind and friendly until we arrived in Catham. Why the sudden change? Speaking of which, Alicia suddenly remembered something and glanced in another direction. But Alfred's radiant expression puzzled her. What's wrong with this child? As soon as this question surfaced in her mind, the boy consciously voiced his observation. He looks exactly like Lord Randis. That was the knight Alfred greatly admired. Hearing this, Alicia froze, understanding dawning on her. The child was captivated by Norman's appearance. Standing behind them, Erica, seeing these two contrasting emotions, one of exhaustion and the other of shining eyes, couldn't help but cover her mouth and sigh. The Melfonts really do have a thing for beautiful people. Hey! Just then, Norman suddenly turned his gaze forward and softly called, Miss Melfort. This startled Alicia, and she glanced over. He then casually reminded her, Master Alfred should go to bed now. Then he made a suggestion, so I think we should conclude the dinner here. These sudden words were like a bolt from the blue, striking Alfred's ears and making the boy's face instantly pale. Alicia calmly replied, you're right. But thousands of questions arose in her mind. Is he serious? She screamed inwardly in confusion. Does he really want to end the dinner without saying a word? Just then, Norman spoke with a smile. However, I have a request before we do. He then shyly asked for her time. Could I have a moment of your time? But Alicia wasn't happy at all. She was even a little worried. What? After the two moved outside, she angrily crossed her arms and coldly threw the question at Norman. What do you want to talk about? The more she spoke, the more uncomfortable she felt. I thought you were going to treat me like a stranger. He still looked innocent. Then, as if he realized something quite amusing, he smiled and touched his chin. I never thought about it. Norman slowly approached her. But if I acted as I pleased in front of everyone, he casually voiced his thoughts, it would trouble you, wouldn't it? His ambiguous words left Alicia completely bewildered. What? Norman blushed as he explained. Because of the surrounding gazes, I've been holding back. His emotions seemed to be infectious, causing Alicia to blush as well. After explaining, Norman moved a little closer, as if seeking praise. I did well, didn't I? Alicia clenched her hands, stammering just. The words wouldn't come out. Norman didn't press her, continuing to observe her with a smile. Finally, she averted her gaze and softly praised him. Yes, you did well. Just those simple words were enough to make Norman beam. His radiant emotion was almost blinding, but Alicia cleared her throat and steered the conversation back on track. Ahem, so what did you need me for? She knew this man well. I'm sure you didn't bring me here just to say that. Norman gave an embarrassed chuckle. I was hoping you could do me a favor. A moment later, Alfred's eyes sparkled as he looked at the creature before him. Wow. The boy was delighted, staring at it intently. I want to hold it. Antoinette paid no mind to the small human, preoccupied with licking its leg. Norman smiled and gave his permission. Please, feel free, young Master Alfred. Seeing her nephew smile so brightly made Alicia happy as well. This child. Then her thoughts turned to the man beside her. He's already forgotten how coldly he treated me just minutes ago. The two men, one big and one small, were surrounding the black cat. Then Alicia asked, so the favor you need is... She could hardly believe her own thought. For me to keep this little monster company here. Antoinette, taking advantage of the lull in conversation, wriggled free from Alfred's grasp and leaped in another direction. Norman confirmed with a smile. Yes, isn't it adorable? Just then, she too noticed the creature with surprise. It was now amicably curled up on Alicia's lap. Alfred commented with a hint of jealousy, Antoinette seems to like you a lot. It rubbed its head against her, as if to confirm the boy's words. Then, the boy fearlessly uttered a fatal sentence. It doesn't really like that Finn over there. Finn, standing at a distance, grumbled angrily, feeding it was a waste of effort. Norman smiled gently, and then said to her, I hope you'll cherish it. Alicia, her cheeks slightly flushed, reached out to pet the small cat, commenting, oh, well, it is rather cute. Her action struck Erica and Finn like lightning. My goodness, she thought happily. He told me to cherish Antoinette. She couldn't help but think further, or himself. Just then, a white butterfly fluttered by, catching Antoinette's attention. It immediately jumped down from Alicia's lap to chase after it. The sudden movement startled Alfred, who cried out, oh. The boy hurried away from the table to chase after Antoinette. Where are you going? Erica called out in alarm. Young master. She turned back anxiously and shouted, you can't just run off like that. The chaotic scene unfolding outside the courtyard made Alicia think that the last time such a development had successfully brought a smile to her face, when had things ever been so peaceful. Suddenly, a man approached, startling Erica, who turned around. At the same time, the black cat let out a wary meow. Alfred, startled, hugged it tightly. Antoinette. Then the boy glanced up suspiciously. What's wrong? It was Gano, who sneered contemptuously. Since when were these monsters allowed here? The man's appearance startled Alicia, and she stood up. Gano. Norman also recognized him. The man I met in Kathmandu. The image of him embracing Alicia flashed through his mind again, as vivid as if it had happened yesterday. Gano also saw him and said with a provocative sneer, I thought there was something wrong with the intel, but Diaz really is here. Norman frowned uncomfortably. Alicia quickly interrupted Gano. He's a guest to the Melfonts. Then she sternly reminded him, so please be respectful. Norman continued to silently observe the newcomer. Then Alicia stood and asked, what brings you here? Gano casually approached, replying, is there a law forbidding me from coming here? Outside in the garden, Finn stammered, trying to gauge Alfred's opinion. Young master, Should we go play somewhere else for a while? Erica also spoke up worriedly. Miss, may I have a word with you? Then she leaned in close to her mistress's ear and whispered, I have some information regarding Petro Landry. Alicia's expression turned serious. She turned to the newcomer and said, You're just in time, Gano. Come with me. Then she gave a slight bow to Norman. Excuse me, I have to go. She departed directly, leaving behind only a light farewell. See you next time. Unaware of his crestfallen expression and the sad murmur he uttered, after the three of them entered, Miss Alicia repeated in a low voice, Petro Landry. She could hardly believe this news. Requesting an audience with me. Erica was equally astonished. Yes, Miss Alicia. Erica briefly and clearly analyzed the situation. Petro immediately changed her mind when her sister was mentioned. She also guessed how furious Petro was when she received that letter. Alicia scoffed, she's lost it. Erica asked softly, what are your plans regarding this matter? Without much thought, Alicia immediately gave her orders. First, I'll dispatch more Floca, issue a warning, and summon Petro Landry to see me. Gano, chin resting on his hand, listened to her plan with interest. On the road to the royal capital, Dinra, Alicia solemnly declared the meeting time, 3 days from today.